And we're live.
Soundboard.
I do have soundboard, but I'm not allowed to use them. They've muted me.
It's true.
It took all of 5 minutes.
It took not even, dude. It was record time.
No soundboards today. What's up, guys? This is the Devil Drives Lada, episode 2. So, last week we technically did episode 1, however, my audio was the only one that recorded. So, that'll get released eventually. It was what?
Never.
It was a failure.
Oh, yeah, I'm a failure. Yeah. Oh, well, here we are. Episode 2 hopefully won't be a failure. So, we shall see. Today, we are talking about Ukraine. We're going to be talking about the history behind, or a brief history behind Ukraine, the 2014 annexation, and the 2022 invasion, which was a whole invasion. We'll get into...
You mean the special military exercise?
Oh, yeah, the special military exercise. Thanks,
so we don't get arrested in Russia.
What does Sergei call him? Grandmaster Putin? So we're going to be talking about me, Jamey, my packing, traveling, and first 24 hours in Ukraine. And we'll be getting in, after that, we'll get into current events from this week, touching on a few different things, broad spectrum events this week.
Man.
What?
I'm just here to talk about aliens, man.
Yeah, UFOs are real! We'll just have some fun, and hopefully everyone can have a takeaway or learn something this week. Like I said, I'm Jamey. I have Ohana Arms, starting that back up recently. I spent 9 months in Ukraine. I teach people how to shoot. I'm a connoisseur of a gun tube, and I have some really cool friends. So here's a few of them today. We have 5 of us total, and then a 6th will be in and out today. So who wants to go next?
I guess I can go. For the I guess the sake of anonymity, I'm just gonna be going. We're gonna go with Lieutenant Dangle.
Dangle.
Yeah, Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911.
Incredible,
dude.
But you can find me on Instagram at GunsGothsandAnarchy. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am a Operation Inherent Resolve veteran. Did a few months in Syria in 2019. So, yeah.
Who's next?
All right.
That was a weird ass silence, my guy.
What? Wait, what?
Nothing.
I'm Blake.
Do we want to just go in order of the
coworker
list
turned
that's
best
on here?
friend.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Do you want to go?
No, I was just asking if we want to use the list in the Discord right here and just go in that order, but you were already going, so.
Wow. Oh, I think it
Sit
changes
down.
per person, because I'm in the
Yeah, I
top
think it
right
does.
now.
Carry on, Blake.
All right, I'm Blake. I am Jamie's coworker that turned best friend, and I followed his shenanigans in Ukraine very closely. I got added to
Shenanigans.
this group right at the beginning of it, so I got the honor of following along with what he did over there, helping them. I am a mechanic by trade, and guns and gear are a hobby for me, so I'm just here to join in on the fun.
All right, I guess it's my. Unless Ian, you want to go? Are you impatient? You
Rock,
can go
paper,
next if you
scissors
want.
over it.
I guess I'll go since you just doxed me again.
You just said earlier you didn't care.
Yeah,
That
then
is true.
I said I was going to be Greg Wong, but that was just a joke.
You gotta be literal with me. You know this. I don't read social cues. I don't even get to see you. It's just voice. There's no cue at all.
Please be patient. I have autism. What's up, guys? I'm Ian. You can find me on Instagram. My company, Oper808r Supply, we do some gear mods and originals and stuff like that. If you want some neat Halo patches and shit.
Oh, yeah, I have
But
one
yeah,
of
I'm
them.
just a civilian LARPer, typical BB Wars veteran.
Oh
here to hang out and shoot the shit.
Yes, there's one of Ian's patches.
Shameless plug.
We're on the JPC.
Yeah, I got mine right here, still on my desk, because it doesn't fit on fucking
Flex.
anything I own.
Yeah,
That's why I
Mine's
love
right
that patch. It's just so
I
fucking
told you it was extra large.
Oh,
I
I
think-
know,
hold
but
on.
I don't have like an LBAV or nothing to throw it on, dude. It's
I love
fine.
just
All right.
putting it as like the one and only patch on my entire kit because it's just so fucking big.
Secretly, why I did it. You can't have any other patches.
Right. All right. So I'm Zach. Beats for fucking Cam. For We Can Gun It dudes, if they ever find this. But I'm practically just a internet kid with Aspies that just indulges heavily in gun culture and self-defense strategies and so forth. And I'm a firearms instructor in training, trying my hardest to try to get that taken care of, so that way I can just fucking info dump on people about shooting and then get paid for it at least, and not be just
I was
on
gonna
the
say
internet.
you info dump anyway.
Yeah, I know, but at least I get paid for it then. You know what I mean? Like, on the internet, people are just like, who the fuck's this autistic kid yelling at me? Like,
Are you gonna get paid for those feet soon? I'd
I
pay
hope
for those
so.
feet.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm trying to, bro.
Hey, babe, get in here. We gotta start an only feet. Anyway, so student only
It'd be like that, man. Ammo's expensive.
It's true.
yeah.
Yeah,
so we're
try living on a fucking island and buying your ammo.
he's an
Ooh.
island boy. You should start
Island
just
boy.
sharpening bamboo into the size of 9mm.
The
Oh.
punji sticks.
See how well it works out. I don't know. It's probably gonna just shred in the barrel, and at least you get a good clean. Then have some hops in there with it, and you might
Yeah,
get
bro.
some
It's basically rat shot at that point. I mean,
We're gonna go down there. We're gonna go down there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is my bamboo 3D printer." And we're like, "Oh, what filament do you use?" He's like, "No, I bamboo. Like this is my in-processing station." And there's like somebody like whacking it all up, like turning into filament, and then he's just feeding it into the machine.
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Way to
bamboo
go.
with 2 O's, not with a U.
Bamboo. That's everybody. We also have did he go by his real name last week?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we have Traven. He'll be in and out on today's episode. Hopefully he gets in here for at least the near the end, because he's in charge of I think 2 of our current events this week that I know nothing about.
Yeah, because they were his idea.
I guess.
I know they were his.
Aliens, dude.
You can have the UFOs are real. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go ahead and get right into a very brief history of Ukraine. I am not a historian. I spent some time in Ukraine. I do understand. I would like to say a decent amount of the Ukrainian culture and enough history to be able to get around and talk to people.
This
But
dude
I
eats
do-
soup once in Ukraine and thinks he has it all under control. It's fine.
Borscht. But there's many things that I don't know. There's details that I could potentially get wrong. So this is not, this is not legal advice. This is not, certified Ukrainian history. This is, my brief knowledge and understanding of it. Yeah, so I will
like
do my best.
The 4chan version.
The 4chan version of Ukraine. So yeah, exactly. These are some notes that I took, and have taken and kind of
Just don't invite those guys that like everybody associates with all of the Ukraine military that have a specific letter for like their symbol. They would definitely be on
Hashtag
4chan.
Oh yeah, the Azov homies. I'm sure they're on 4chan.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was trying to.
I'm pretty sure I remember seeing them recruiting on K.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. It
Yeah.
wouldn't. All right, so I won't go into the more ancient Ukraine history. I understand very little, but do know that Ukraine has been very. I don't know if war torn necessarily be the right word or phrase, but it's had its very large fair share of conflicts, war. It's traded hands many of times. Kyiv has been captured X amount of times, traded back. I know there was one, at one point it changed hands 5 times in a year, during a conflict. Like, it has seen a lot of war over its time.
I mean, that's true for most of Eastern Europe.
Yes, yeah, that I mean, whether you're talking about Poland or I mean, even like look at World War II and how and World War I for that matter, and those are just 2 of the major ones. They've both had their fair share of conflicts dating back for thousands of years.
Are we going to talk about how you became racist against Polish people?
Oh, yeah, well, no, we're not gonna be talking about that.
Damn.
I love the Polish people now. I
Oh, thank you, Polish people. You send someone into his life from one country, and it's like, oh, I don't hate him anymore.
Yeah, Ukraine had quite a large hatred for Polish people dating back to a while, and I won't say like their entire lifespan, but I mean they've there was that? Oh, I'm scrolling through my notes here. There was at one point.
Is this pre or post funny mustache man?
This was during World War II. And so I forget what the massacre was called. I don't have it in my notes. I literally just have massacre.
The Holodomor.
It was like it was on the border. Yeah, it was 100,000-ish Polish civilians.
It was a forced famine by the Soviet Union.
Oh, why would the Soviet Union ever do that? Lies, capitalist lies.
About it for the longest time either. Like it went like completely under the radar. That the Holocaust took full spectacle.
Yes,
I mean that should have brought Ukraine and Poland closer together. That's a shared experience.
The issue with well, hold on. Let's go back a little bit. We'll come back to World War II. So in the early 1900s, let's see, 1917 was the Ukrainian War of Independence. And then that was, I believe, their technically most recent War of Independence. I'll have to go back and look. And we might read a little bit more. But yeah, so that was
from who?
That would have been from Russia. I don't have that in my notes. I'm about to just
so
pull the Wikipedia
they fought
article.
a war to get away and then
Yeah.
joined when they became the Soviet Union.
Yeah, because like technically Russia has had them annexed for several times throughout history. I know Austria also annexed the western portion of Ukraine for a little while, and the rest was Russia at the time. So it kind of just depends on what region and what time period specifically.
Isn't Kazakhstan in that same boat, kind of?
I don't know. Somebody
They just be taking the L's, bro.
Yeah.
From what it sounds like.
Yep.
So okay, so in 1917, Ukraine. I just pulled up the Wikipedia at this point. Ukraine, which included Crimea, the Kuban, and portions of the Donkozak Islands, with large Ukrainian populations, tried to break free from Russia after the February 2017 revolution in St. Petersburg, which 1917 revolution in St. Petersburg. From 1917 to I believe it was 1921 was the Ukrainian War for Independence. Yeah, from 1917 to 1921. So yes, they were trying to break free from Russia. Which was quickly. Yeah, and needless to say, it didn't work. Ukraine was Russian until, well, with the exception of World War II, where it was a bit split. But Ukraine ultimately was Russian as a whole kind of thing until the fall of the USSR. The Soviet famine was from 1930 to 1933. It killed millions. Like, it was extremely deadly. there are murals and memorials all over Ukraine, including parks and things dedicated to the people lost. It was extremely deadly. You'll never guess, the Soviet Union and a famine. Surprise, surprise. Then we get into World War II, so that was in the early 30s. World War II, which started for them in 1939, where Americans, it did not start in 1939 for us. That was when, well, I'm just going to go ahead and read off the Wikipedia at this point. When Hitler and Stalin invaded Poland, the Soviet Union taking most of eastern Poland, Nazi Germany, with its allies, invaded the Soviet Union in 1941. Let's see. Some Ukrainians initially regarded the soldiers as liberators from the Soviet rule, while others formed a partisan movement. Some elements of the Ukrainian Nationalist Organization formed Ukrainian Insurgent Army. So the UIA, they're the ones that wave originally found. I believe they were the original makers of the what we now see all over Ukraine, the black with the red flag. Instead of the blue over the yellow.
Oh, with the skull and everything like that?
Right?
Well, technically, the way it was originally founded, it was literally just, it's black over red. There are plenty of them now with skulls and stuff, on them. But that was, I believe that's where that flag originally originated from.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Ukraine's very, history-oriented. A lot of the symbols, flags, etc., have been used by them for hundreds or thousands of years in some cases. And they fought both Soviet and Nazi forces. So in World War II, there's one more thing I want to reference after this. In World War II, there was a portion of Ukraine that fought for the Germans, a portion that fought for the Russian, USSR, and a portion that fought both. They were literally, I guess you could technically say, surrounded by all sides because they were getting fought from the east and west, as well as, technically speaking, from the south, because Germany actually came through, and the river that they struggled to cross was actually the Dnieper River that divides Ukraine in half, essentially. So they made it a long ways into Ukraine, which leads up to the last point I want to make. 1.5 million Jews in Ukraine were killed by the Nazis, which is not just a number to scoff at. A lot of them were just thrown into trenches and ditches. There's a big park in downtown Kyiv dedicated to them, and there's ravines running through the park and stuff that they were literally just thrown off, dead Jews just thrown into the pit. It's not necessarily a pit, it's like a ravine. That would be the best way to describe it. It's a big, very, I guess you could say, important park. It has lots of murals. It's beautiful. Lots of walking trails. It's wooded. It's gorgeous. So essentially, the takeaway from World War II is, pre-World War II was the famine that millions died in. During World War II, there were Ukrainians that fought for the Germans, Ukrainians that fought for the Russians, and Ukrainians that fought both. In those three, you could also kind of divide those three segments, or three, I guess you could say, sides of Ukraine. You could subdivide those even more. This militia fought for them, and this militia fought for that, and this militia stood for this, but it was kind of enemy of the enemy is my friend. So there was lots of different, hey, we don't necessarily agree politically, but we both see this side as the problem, so we'll stand together for now. You'll see that a lot in Ukrainian history, even leading up to the 2022 invasion that I was going to say a part of, but I wasn't a part of the invasion. I was a part of repelling the invasion. And you'll see that a lot throughout Ukrainian history. I think we'll go ahead and jump straight from World War II into the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, where Ukraine became an independent country. That was in December of 1991. On 21 January 1990, over 300,000 Ukrainians organized a human chain for Ukraine independence between Kyiv and Lviv. Ukraine officially declared itself an independent country on 24 August 1991. The
Chad move.
yes. Which, if you look at the fall of the Soviet Union, in a lot of ways, the middle class, I'm going to use that term kind of loosely here, really needed the Soviet Union, like, as far as its political and economic, what it had to offer. Because at the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of, like, middle class workers and families essentially had nothing anymore. It was kind of one of those things
where they relied on the industry
yes,
from the
they'd
Soviets.
become so reliant on them that it became a problem when it fell. Like, they had nothing without them. It was a very, like, toxic, codependent relationship between the industrialism of the USSR and its workers. And you see that a lot in not just failed, but really any toxic government, or specifically a lot of times in the what would we technically
Industrial society.
Yes, thank you. Wait, you see that very often.
Not trying to quote a certain someone here, but you know.
Here go them consequences again.
Yep, that's a shame. And so there were a lot of, I mean, it wasn't like, 50-50 split or anything like that, but there were actually a lot of Russians and Ukrainians and several other of the USSR states at that time that really looked up to, I guess you could say looked up to the USSR and really missed it. Like, you still see that even to this day. Certain individuals from
like
all those
Transnistria and that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what Putin's Grandmaster Putin, his like public kind of, like, he said over and over, hey, we're trying to, I mean, essentially what he's saying is we're trying to get the band back together. He's like, we're trying to rescue, Crimea from the evil Ukrainians so they can be a part of the Russian, empire again. And a lot of that is what he's referencing is, hey, some of them, it might not be a large amount, but I'm sure some of them wish they were still part of the USSR.
Let us ask the former Yugoslavia how they feel about this.
Yeah, or Chechnya, the freaking Czechs.
You better check your privilege, dude.
Got him.
Did somebody reference the former Yugoslavia?
Side note, these days the Czech Republic is surprisingly based for Europe. I will say that.
Yeah, it's true. They do have a constitutional right to bear arms. It's just like, it's not exactly one-on-one of ours, but they have a constitutional right, which is just kind of neat.
They're also more free than we are with gun shit.
I bet they are.
Have that going for them.
Oh, you know what? No, you know what's funny? They probably have the full auto Bren 2 BR. You know what they won't import?
They
even
absolutely
a semi-auto Bren 2 BR.
Dude, I just want that Bren 2 MS and fucking 7.62 NATO. But god damn it, that's not fucking happening.
While
because
they
are trigger group is too much.
I mean, we also have a government that says that, plastic devices to bump fire your weapon are also illegal because a piece of plastic. I mean, arbitrary gun laws.
The ATF also said that a piece of string constitutes a machine gun. So, I mean,
come and take it, boys. This is just my phone holder.
I was gonna say I could pull up my shoelaces. I mean,
you can't have my shoelaces.
I could probably hang myself with those. So I mean, it's got dual purpose.
We're all gonna be wearing the Velcro in 5 years.
Destruction of government property, sir. It's not allowed.
They're like, how dare you try to commit suicide? Kill him!
So we'll jump from the fall of the Soviet Union in 91, and we'll pick up in 2013. Yeah, we all do. We were all alive for that one.
Whatever you guys say.
In 2013, They tried to sign an agreement, or why I say they. The president failed to sign an agreement, the Ukraine-European Union agreement. And he was actually in a lot of ways pro-Russian. And also, I guess a little side note on that, pre-2013-ish, Ukraine and Russia saw each other more so as, I won't say like family, but they saw themselves as more equals, as more brothers. It wasn't until, what was the date? 2014? When did they annex Crimea? Was it January of 2014?
Sounds about right.
I want to say it was spring.
Yeah. Because it was during, I want to say it was January 2014. When they began, because if I remember correctly, the protests were actually going on, in Maidan, which resulted in 80 deaths. I've been in Maidan, it's beautiful. They have, like a quick bio of, or the names, like a little short bio of, the people that died, as well as in the center of Maidan, there's like these massive pillars, I guess you could say, with like a timeline. It goes, like, it's like a spiral timeline that you go around and read. It's really cool, actually. It's in, Ukrainian and English, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so Russia decided to annex Crimea. I believe while all this was going on, I think it was January of 2014.
I think March of 2014, Crimea declared independence from Ukraine and was annexed by Russia.
Okay, March. So yeah, it was spring. It was not January. It was March of 2014.
Ian was alive in 2014. We know that for sure now.
What? He gets further doxxed.
I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
Zoomer.
Is that even a Zoomer? Is that what
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know any generation after millennials.
I was going to say, my
Zoomers.
generation, like being, in the year that most of us, the rest of us were born in, people can't tell if we were essentially Zoomers or millennials still. Because, like, it depends on what source material you go to. They'll say millennials ended 92, 93, or up to 98. Like, it just depends.
Yeah, because I'm 96, and I know, like, depending on where you look specifically, it'll be like, millennials ended in 95 or 96. So I typically end up just claiming millennial because
I remember
identify
tapes.
more.
I remember, I had my first Game Boy.
Game Boy Colors.
It was. I had the one before the color, dude. It was just.
Hey Blake, what was your first Game Boy?
Game Boy Pocket.
Yeah, based.
92.
Like, yeah. So I don't even know which, like. What are the Zoomers? Like, I guess they start at 96-ish, and then
one of the major things I like to think is I would say it would be the end of the century, but at the same time, when it comes to like historic context, most of the Zoomers that you'll talk to now, like they're reaching 18 and above, but they all don't remember 9/11 as a historical context. It's to them it's being taught in school. And I think that's one of the signifiers that would probably tell someone that's a Zoomer is a massive event that caused, 20 years of conflict for the United States being 9/11. They didn't see it happen or weren't even alive during that time. They were born well after and saw the aftermath of it growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things like we use terms like, oh, that happened pre-COVID or post-COVID or during COVID. It's just kind of like 9/11. Like, we literally call it like post-9/11 America. Yep. I mean, so much changed in the world.
Country music, man.
Jason Aldean and his right wing, not in my small town or whatever it's called.
Oh, I have a meme for that. Hold on.
Oh, you have a meme? We need to share the meme.
Ian's like, I have source material. Hold on.
It's not meme time, but I'm open for memes. And for the record, I just looked up. Officially now, millennials are recognized from 1981 to 1996. And Gen Z, the Zoomers, are 1997 to 2012. And then apparently the new generation is called Generation Alpha, which is kind of just dumb.
What?
That's
Dude, you know how cringe that is? Yeah, the gym bros like, part of Generation Alpha. Out
We're
here,
the alpha
fucking
generation,
preaching.
bro.
Is the next one Generation Sigma?
Generation of Chads.
Generation.
No, that's me. That's literally me.
Wait, where's the meme? Can you screen share or what? How are we
I put
sending
it
meme?
in the chat.
Yeah,
Oh,
How
how can
that in a
I?
small town? Which one? The one with all the meth heads outside the sit-go? Or
I
the
cannot
one with
throw
all
it
of
up
them
in-
good old boys?
I can't throw the meme up without doxing the entire Discord server. So if someone else can throw it up.
Okay, so due to this meme format, I'm going to go on the presumption that this was this done by Oof Puppy?
Wait, can you
Yeah,
just
that's
show
why-
us and then
That's why
describe
there's a
it?
watermark on the left side.
I was about to say, did the @oof puppy give that away, or
No, that was off of. I'm not even looking at it now. I was off of mere memory because he posts like fucking one of those every other day, and I just it's.
Yeah.
He owns that meme
I
context
didn't
in this point.
realize, the other day, fucking Kitsune Based follows my fucking personal Instagram.
Based.
Hell yeah.
Is anyone gonna actually put the screen share the meme?
Hell yeah, brother. Oh,
I'll end up
alright.
doxing everyone.
Yeah,
I
I can't
don't
do it because
know.
my whole Discord window is recording. So if I like
Hold
minimize it to view the chat,
how
it
do
just-
I do this?
I don't know.
I've never used Discord.
I don't know what a Discord is. These millenniums and these gizmos and gadgets.
Here, I can do it. So am I going to that?
Oh, here
Am
we
I
go.
going
I
to
got
that?
it. I got it.
Yeah, am I
It
going to that
doxes
meme?
everyone the same way I could have.
Yeah, that's-
Try that in small town.
Wait, what was? Oh.
Fuck Jason Aldean, dude.
Mason Aldeaner. Alright, let me try to go ahead and fucking there.
That fucking
Okay,
guy in the middle. That guy in the middle on the left side. We all know that guy
What guy in the middle on the left side?
from the meme.
Oh, yeah. We're all, I think, from relatively small towns, or have lived in small towns. I think I
Yeah,
can speak for
I would say
everyone when
Detroit
I
is
say
pretty
that.
small. I mean, everybody's heard of it.
Alright, so everyone but
Everybody's
you, I
screaming.
guess, has...
I mean, Lexington was it wasn't as small as you guys probably remember it growing up. Because I remember being told that the entire time I was there when I first moved was how it used to be just nothing but farmland and a lot of Germanic influence from when they first settled. And that it didn't get like bussin' busy when, until 2 years before I ever arrived, I think.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Germanic influence, but yeah, it used to just be a bunch of farmland.
I don't know. That's what all my old teachers would say in fucking middle school and shit. They were like, "Yeah, it used to be just a bunch of old Germans. They all mostly settled out this way, and but they started their farms and
That's not
yeah,
sus at all. When did that happen? Like the mid 40s?
After they already
The
moved from
boomers.
fucking Peru or wherever at the very bottom
Yeah.
of South America. Yeah, they were like, South America's not
They got
for us.
their,
Let's go to
they got their
Lexington, South
visa
Carolina.
from Ecuador and came up.
Right.
Okay, so back to Russian invasion. So annexation of
Be a
Crimea
good name for a
was
band.
March 2014. You said 2014, right, Blake?
Yep.
That's what I'm remembering. Okay.
Pull that up, Jamie.
What?
I said, pull that up, Jamie, as in Seth Rogen.
Oh.
His guy
yeah.
behind the
Joe-
camera's name
Seth Rogen.
Joe Rogan, whatever.
I would just like to say I would
Have you
much
heard the
rather
DMT?
watch Seth Rogen any day of the week than Joe Rogan.
Have you done DMT?
We should try it. And what's the other one? Alex Jones, dude. All right.
He's the
Anyway,
I will eat.
Dude, I don't like Alex Jones, but I have to say the Alex Jones Warhammer memes that I keep seeing
Dude,
are
all the
fucking
memes are
incredible.
I mean, I'm glad him and Joe Rogan exist specifically for the memes. Like, I mean, the amount of
Yeah, exactly.
times a week that I quote, like, the Democrats turning the frogs gay. Like, the amount of
Oh,
times
dude,
I
my
quote that
favorite
alone. What?
Fuck, I totally forgot where I was going with that. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
Anywho.
Lost my train of thought there, boys. My bad.
Alright, so...
It's shitty, because, like, he talks about... Some of the stuff that he talks about is true, but then he says the most outlandish shit and just completely invalidates everything that he ever says.
Correct. Yeah, it's not that he's, like, never has said anything truthful.
In public schools.
It's not that he's never wrong, it's just, he,
I don't
he's
know.
Just
rarely
very often.
correct.
The only way that I see him is just like an internet phenomenon, like a walking meme. That's it. That's pretty much it. That's the only respect I'll have for him.
Have y'all ever watched, like, the Internet Historian on YouTube? I
No.
want, like, the Internet Historian to do, like, an entire, like, series on Alex Jones and or
That'd be
Joe
interesting.
Rogan. It'd be hilarious, dude.
He's
Alright.
like a real life character from a TV show or some shit. Like,
An NPC.
My favorite is the Alex Jones indie song.
Oh, I haven't heard this.
Oh, it's fucking beautiful.
Cue it up and we can listen to it later.
Yeah,
Unless it's
Jamie's
gonna
trying to
get
get
us
through
canceled.
this immense fucking history.
Yeah, this country is dense.
The
So
war.
in the lore of Ukraine, boys. Oh yeah, I'm literally reading it here in March 2014, the annexation of Crimea. Yeah. Skip ahead to I have this handy dandy timeline I found with dates. So, November 10th, 2021.
well,
US
hold on. Before you get into the 2022,
Yes.
I think people should probably know that this is the 2014 invasion is where the Azov battalion came from.
Yes. Yeah.
They got their start as an organization as a direct response to the 2014 invasion.
And actually, I will kind of bounce off on that a little bit before we get into. I'm glad you said that. 2014 is when Ukraine basically went from not having changed their military technology significantly. I'm just being honest and upfront here. They really had not changed their military technology since, at best, the early 1990s. Like, best case scenario, you can actually see pictures and videos. They're relatively popular. Of Ukrainian soldiers fighting in Crimea. In 2014, wearing just straight up like Korean War era kit. Like, it's almost. Yeah, like, yeah. It's honestly kind of comical to watch. There's a video, let me see if I can find it. It's like they're running around in the streets. I'm sure you guys have maybe even seen this video before, but the dude's like running with like a PKM. It's like him and his squad, and his helmet's like bouncing up and down as they're getting in fighting positions on the streets. In the streets. Screet. Kilton the Streets. Great Facebook group if you're not in it. Fighting. The video is floating around.
Honestly.
Dude, it's great.
I haven't seen it in a while.
Really quick, I have a guest speaker who has something to say.
Aw.
That is all.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's all.
I can't find the video right now. But yeah, essentially, I mean, I guess everyone understands the gist of it. 2014 Ukraine was, as far as military goes, very outdated, to say the least. And that would be quite an understatement. During 2014, at the start of 2014, the U.S. started working closely with Ukraine Special Forces. The most popular Special Forces unit would probably be Alpha. Alpha Group. I know they also have the Ukrainian, the maritime team. I don't remember their unit name. It's completely escaping me at the moment. But they also have like a
their
Marine
Instagram
division.
is fucking insane.
Are you talking about Amphib?
Yeah.
Amphib? Yeah, so I don't remember the technical unit name for Amphib, but their Instagram is literally, I think it's just Amphib Team. Those guys go hard. I end up meeting a few of those guys. Those dudes go hard. And that really all started in 2014 when U.S. contractors, including, I believe, directly U.S. Special Forces were also involved in some of that training.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. I know, not to simp for them or whatever, but I know for like Forward Observation Group's been posting videos training Ukrainians for years. I think that's kind of how they sort of got their start. I don't understand all of that background. I haven't talked to them.
Well, that's why they got like, you know, in trouble. I'm doing air quotes, you can't see me. They got in trouble in the court of public opinion because they posted a bunch of shit of being, you know, embedded with the Azov guys and training them and stuff like that when everybody was spurting over Azov being Nazis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know there's even some. I know Fog specifically has to be more careful about who they post pictures with, and what tattoos are in those pictures and things like that. But realistically, 2014 is what kicked off Ukrainians' like military modernization, with help of the U.S. and I presume also other NATO countries. You can compare 2014. Let me see if I can at least pull up a picture to show you guys. 2014.
Well, if the folks from Niger are to be believed, then France is to blame.
I saw that. Do you know anything about that? I do not.
Makes no fucking sense to me. No,
Okay.
I don't get it.
I was hoping to find like, I know there's some.
The thought process there is just wild to me. Like, hey, yeah, I agree with these folks' war so much that I'm gonna go burn down another country's embassy that has nothing to do with it at all. And people who probably don't even know anyone involved, I'm gonna try to kill them. Nailed it, guys.
I think I can specifically just share my screen. Whoop, I just docked into the Discord again.
Yay! I wasn't the only one!
So, here's a picture on Reddit I found of comparing 2014 Ukrainian military to 2022. And this is, the top picture really sums up the video I was describing earlier of the dudes, like, running around unbuckled helmets with their, little RPK ammo carriers.
I love the old school woodland, though.
Yeah, so I forget what that pattern's called. That's still actually used on occasion now in Ukraine, due to, specific, like, winter clothing shortages or, like, rain. I had a rain jacket in that pattern that was issued to me.
Is that not, what is it, WZ93 woodland?
I couldn't tell you.
Someone call Americana Pipe Dream, they might know.
Like the Red Dawn
Yeah,
camo
dude,
Jamie?
Say again.
I'm seriously failing as a camo.
Was that like the Red Dawn camo one you were showing me, Jamie?
Maybe. I don't have my pictures handy at the moment, and I didn't. I don't think I brought that one.
Okay.
No. So you're talking about this.
Oh no, that's Polish.
Yeah, that one. That one's pretty fucking beautiful.
You're talking about this one, and I forgot the name of this one, but this is technically you could consider this like the earliest Digi camo. I just always nicknamed it like Digi Floral, but technically that's the name of the new Russian 6B.
Yeah, Digiflora is different.
So that one is this one. Anytime
that somebody uses mustard color in a camo, that shit goes hard though.
Yeah. So this is like modern Digi Floral.
I have a test rig in the.
Is that one, and I honestly don't remember the.
If you look like baby doo doo, is very cool.
But yeah,
Telling you, man.
what they're wearing
Dude, I
was...
bought a fucking combat shirt and Greek lizard, and that shit goes hard.
Oh my god. I want to do a couple raid mods in Greek Lizard real bad.
Yeah.
I have a guy that I think is gonna send me his field shirt.
Oh, sick.
Oh, that sounds dope.
Lizard camo. I haven't announced it or anything yet. I'm dropping a chocolate chip raid mod here pretty soon.
Oh,
I
snap.
managed to get a hold of one for a really good price, and it has matching pants to go with it.
That's why you guys need to subscribe to our YouTube, so you get leaks like this. Ian, how can they find you on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram at Oper808r Supply, but it's spelled kind of fucky, so we'll put that in the description or whatever.
Yeah, we'll drop it down below.
You know, the podcast thing.
Oper808er.
Oper808r
Yeah,
Supply.
I have a problem. I make all of my names based on how they look on a screen and don't ever think about having to actually say them out loud.
Gets his business license and says it out loud for the first time. He's like,
fucking great.
I was trying to tell
I've tried
someone
to explain to people a couple times, like, fuck, I don't even know how to say this.
I've been trying to tell people, like, so at like airsoft stuff or whatever. I know Blake has your patch on the back of his Blake Air. I've worn mine out there before, and it like almost every time someone's like, "Oh, dude, I like your patch," or whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, it's from our buddy Ian. It's the 808 the
Oper808.
yeah." And I'm like, "Here, I'll send you his Instagram." And then it literally just like hit me the other day. I said it just like I rolled off the tongue. I was like, "Yeah, Oper808er," and I was like, "Dude, I can say it every time now." All I had to do was say it once. But yeah, his Instagram, well, it'll be in the description. Alright, so all that to say, 2014 Ukrainian military was rough. Like, no plate carriers. They didn't know what an armor was.
An
They
armor.
were running an armor. They didn't know what an armor was. They didn't know what a plate carrier was. Their helmets wouldn't stop shrapnel. I mean, it was literally, it's the equivalent like the World War II U.S. helmets
Hot
that,
metal.
yeah.
Like
They didn't wear buckle because they thought if it
guy
would fly
actually
off.
stops and he's like, "It stopped the bullet," and then immediately after gets shot in the same spot and falls over,
Whack.
dude. Like,
Yeah, like, and that's what was 2014. Now we see, just in early 2020, there's amphib alpha guys running around with quad nods, MPXs, MCXs.
Frames.
Galvion helmets, like they're dripped out. And a lot of those guys really do know what they're doing because, with some kind of skipping ahead a little bit, the U.S. has sent obviously a lot of money, funding, training, etc. over there in the past year and a half, and a lot of people are like, we're training America's next enemy now. Thanks Biden administration. Dude, we've been doing this since 2014. Like, there's nothing new here, other than us actually sending them, cash. But realistically,
This
I think we've been
dedicated to the brave Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan.
Let's go. But ultimately, we've been sending them, I'm sure, funding under the table, and at minimum, like, there's things over there that have been, relatively speaking, non-exportable for years. Like, I mean, there's guys over there with ENVGs that didn't just get them last year. Like, they, things like that. Alright. Correct. So, November 10th, 2021. I got this handy dandy timeline thanks to, who is this? Business Today. Thanks, Business Today. 10 November 2021, U.S. reports unusual Russian troop movements near the Ukrainian border. Cool. I don't think really anyone thought anything about this at that time. It didn't even show up on our radar. Like, I think we talked about it one day in like our Telegram or something in our chat. And we were like, "Oh yeah, check this out. Cool." Whatever.
I remember we talked about that and it was gone from our group consciousness within like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we didn't actually start talking about it as a real point of conversation until they posted those guys in Belarus.
Yes. Correct. So that was well, hold on, we'll get to that. 7 December, US threatens Russia with strong economic and other measures if it invades Ukraine. Per this timeline. I don't know the exact details, but I'm sure it was, hey, we're gonna sanction you if you invade. Once again, I don't think anyone, with the exception of potential like US military insiders, or maybe even that, understood what could potentially happen. I think everyone was like, oh yeah, because I mean Russia does stuff similar to this all the time. So does the US. I mean, we'll go and fly, a recon plane over, sketchy stuff near borders, or, we'll sail near the China Strait. Is that what it's called? The Chinese Strait? Which is technically...
we do that all the
yeah.
time, the Strait of Taiwan, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, no one...
China.
China.
Yeah,
So, no one really, I think, at least as far as the public eye, and including us, like, I'm not saying, we have some great insider knowledge, but we do have some connections, and we're relatively in touch with, current events, not as much internationally, but especially anything government or war related. We're relatively in touch and on top of things before even...
Listen, I'm in touch with humanity, okay?
I'm in more touch. I am more human than you. And yeah, like a lot of times we find stuff out or know about things before it even hits the news. We have a decent knowledge of what's going on. We had no idea, like, realistically what was coming in. When we started talking about it, which is what you were just saying, Ian, was on 17 January, Russian soldiers started arriving in Belarus for, quote, military drills. That's when I think we started, like, really looking at stuff. We had some, not private, like, insider information, but we had some not completely... Oh, who did we lose? Oh, our Dangler. Lieutenant Dangles, what did he say? We had some...
Dangle, yeah.
Relatively non-public, like, sat imagery and some other things. And we were like, weren't none of us are military planning experts by any means, but, we started doing some more research, started getting in touch with people. We heard a few different rumors. U.S. announces an extra $200 million in security and aid to Ukraine. When I was reading this before the show, I didn't actually read the word extra. So I am curious to see what aid packages we'd been sending Ukraine pre 19 January 2022, because this is specifically as worded, U.S. announces an extra $200 million in security and aid. So I'll look into that more later. I never actually realized that. 24 January 2022, NATO asks soldiers to be on standby, send ships and fighter jets to Eastern Europe. 25 January, Russia starts military exercise near Ukraine, and in Moscow, annexed Crimea. Okay,
yeah, they did
annexed Crimea.
The fake referendum, right?
Correct.
The thing where they pretended like they let everybody vote if they wanted to be part of Russia or not.
Yeah, that's what I think when it really started, like red flags started going off for the people more in touch with stuff going on.
You're right.
I have a personal friend that individual worked for a company in Ukraine, and that was in January or mid-January. They were like, "Hey, so things are heating up in Ukraine. We're going to send you away." And that company ended up sending a lot of their employees. It was an IT related company, started sending their employees off to the US so they would be able to still operate and function if something were to happen. So, like, I mean, the writing was starting to be on the wall that, things were happening, but once again, I don't think anyone understood the exact impact of what was to come. On 20... Go ahead.
No, nothing. I was just like, come.
CUM. What is Russia gonna come?
I'm gonna come.
25 January, Russia starts military exercise near... Oh, wait, we just read that. 26 January, U.S. refuses to close the NATO door in Ukraine. 2 February, U.S. sends 3,000 soldiers to bolster NATO forces in Eastern Europe. 10 February, Russia and Belarus start 10-day military maneuvers. Looking back, that I find that hilarious.
Days.
We're having a 10-day maneuver. 17 February, which is not 10 days after 10 February. Shell fire escalates along Russian-Ukraine front lines. Wait, so were they shelling pre-invasion? Or is this just talking about Crimea? I mean, because
there was clashes between fighters.
Yeah, if I recall
all the
correctly,
way
because
from
I worked in fast
2014
food.
up until the invasion. Like,
Yeah, there would
have
always
clashes
be
with the Ukrainian
something.
military.
But
Yep.
was that only in Crimea? Like,
That was,
at
like,
the border?
Crimean border.
So it was just
Yeah.
clashes at the border.
Yeah, until I think
As far
right
as
up
I
to
remember.
invasion, they actually had done something over the border on the northernmost side somewhere, I think. And then they said that was a complete accident or something or the other. And then it ended up becoming, like, I think the week later was the invasion. Because I
Okay.
think I remember, if you recall, it was pretty much we really did think the invasion was going to happen because I think they did some shelling in a particular area they normally don't. And so everybody was prepping, but then it didn't happen. And then about a couple days later is when they actually crossed the border.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember seeing the video of, like, basically the Russian convoy just punching through the border station. And the guards were just, like, nowhere to be found. Like, they were like, nope, this...
That was on the 24th.
That was on the
Yeah.
24th? Okay.
24th of February was when the invasion actually started.
So they were... Okay, so there were shelling leading up to that, then. At the border. Okay. 22 February, Russia recognizes independence of two separatist regions in eastern Ukraine. And then 24 February, Russia declares war. Wait, I thought they didn't technically declare war because this is a special military operation.
Yeah, allegedly. I don't know, dude, because there's
I
no
think
telling
they
what
had
they're
to
going to
declare
do.
war in order to act with the military.
Oh, okay. I am just going off this timeline. I don't know how trustworthy business today is. So if technically this is worded incorrectly, I am so sorry. Grandmaster Putin warns other nations not to interfere with explosions heard in Ukraine. That's such a funny way to word that. Guys, I know you hear things happening. Don't interfere.
Look, it sounds like shit's going down, but listen.
That's like the equivalent of like a school shooter saying don't come to school tomorrow. Guys,
After he
you're gonna hear
launched the
sounds,
train-
don't come.
When, like, Poland's getting, like, really fucking sussy about everything, and it's that, Tom Robinson drive-through one, it's like, let me go! I'm trying something!
The mic clipping.
Getting their absolute asses handed to them.
Oh, kurva.
Oh, Cordova. So yeah, that leads up to the invasion, and then the kind of now famous video of the trucks driving through the border, I guess, as we now talked about, is 24 February.
Oh, now we're caught up.
Yeah. So let's see, 24 February.
Fast forward to Jamey getting fucking hit with the draft, but he had flat feet, so then he still decides he's gonna deploy.
Yeah, screw the draft. If there's a U.S. draft, they can, come and take me. Dude, some of our come and take me. Some of our viewers are gonna be like, "OMG, he would stand up against a draft." Yes, because I get to choose what I fight for, and if you want to call me unpatriotic, dude, when some right wing boomers watch this one day, they're gonna be so upset. If only they could read. We're just gonna double down and insult them more.
Among several of our like millennial groups that were Marines, and they're like, "Oh, I can't read."
What up?
So-
I'm Jared.
They're like,
I'm
I-
19.
Never fucking learned how to read.
He's like, "I invaded 2 different countries, and I still don't know how to read."
So, after 24 February, that's really where my timeline ends that I was reading. Because we'd even been talking, probably somewhere in the ballpark of late January, early February, like, hey, I know as a group we talked about potentially getting a contracting gig, and we were relatively serious. We had some connections that were
That's
willing
still
to
on the
work with
table
us.
for me. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's still very on the table. Yeah. If
my
anyone
wife would kill
watching
me.
has some contract hookups, let me know. We have at least a few people that would basically be ready to go.
You boys
So,
got language skills.
I have less language skills, but I have some. On a
I mean-
completely side note, I was looking at some Ukrainian contracting jobs going back as a contractor, and one of the main like requirements is fluent in Russian and Ukrainian. And I was like, well, yeah, no, sorry.
Neither.
Yeah.
I'm passable.
Yeah, I can ask where the nearest store is, and I can order at a restaurant, and yeah. And I can yell at my Ukrainian teammates to get behind cover and things like that, but that's about it. All right, so we'd kind of been talking. We've been really tracking what was going on. Like I said, we had contract connections. We were actively looking at getting global contracts. We had something partially, not lined up, but in the works, I think would be a fair statement. And around that same time, one of
Which
the guys...
thing was that?
I don't know if we should go into detail on that one. It was a...
Just give me a... Because I was there. So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
give me
It was one of... So, one of the individuals
region of
that
the Earth.
was not in the chat, or one of the individuals that is not in the chat right now, or well, I mean not in the chat, not in the stream right now, had
Is this
had a
the
connection.
Middle East
and
thing
it
or
was-
the South America thing?
It was both of those regions were on the table. It was basically
Okay.
we had to show up and succeed, and then we would be given a list of places with given risk and risk assessment, and then we could pick one. And that was dependent on team size, how we did with our tests and things like that. So like we were looking into things. We had stuff in the works. And then one of the guys that would have actually been tacked onto our team that we didn't know super well, he actually picked up a Ukraine contract. So we were kind of really watching closely, seeing how we wanted to do this, what we might be interested in. I know at least two of the people in our friend group said, yeah, no, not going to Ukraine. I would go somewhere else, but that's a bit of a different war, which, I mean, that's entirely correct. Than just picking up a
What was
standard,
that?
like, South American
What is that
contract.
fucking guy's name? The kid that was on Vice.
Which one?
Oh fuck.
Background?
The kid from Virginia.
Mike Dunn?
Yeah. Are we gonna talk about Dunn at all?
We'll get to that. Hi, Mike, if you're watching.
Okay.
Rip.
Fuck you
This,
if you're watching. Go fuck yourself.
I was just gonna say it was great spending some time with you over there. It was a A+ experience.
You're lucky I wasn't there.
Some sarcasm there, Jamey.
Yeah, sarcasm. You remember, you can't get in trouble for sarcasm legally.
That's true.
Yeah, that's not
Allegedly.
legal advice. Yeah, allegedly, don't take this as legal advice. So we were kind of looking at options, kind of talking about things, and we were like, maybe we could go to Ukraine. When our region of employment, changed from South America or Africa or Middle East. The 6 or 8 man team that we'd kind of had put together changed to like me. No one really wanted to go. Yeah, it was very minimal. It decreased.
It wasn't that
significantly.
none of us wanted to go. It was just I had a significant other that would quite literally put me in an early fucking grave if I had gone.
Fun fact, we'll actually later on in another episode talk about the downsides to leaving your wife to go fight in a war without telling her. I got some stories
Yeah,
about that one.
I had just gotten engaged at the time, so I was pretty sure I wouldn't have a life to come back to if I went for that.
Yeah, well, I'll go in the 5-second variant. I was acquainted with someone while I was over there that told his wife he was going on a 3-day business trip and booked one-way tickets to Ukraine and never looked back.
Oh,
Interesting
dude, is that the what is it? Guerrilla Tactical? Is that those guys?
What? I mean, I'm sure this was
Harambe Tactical.
What is it?
Huh?
I said Harambe Tactical.
Guerrilla
No,
Tactical Shop?
not Guerrilla like UE, not O.
Oh.
I don't think. I mean, there were more than one person that did. There was more than one person that did that. I just happened to
Right.
be with
Right.
one.
Well,
One
I
out of
remember
10 experience.
those guys, well, that guy specifically, went on the Art and War show and talked about how he did something very similar.
What nationality was he?
American.
Okay, yeah, different guy.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, there was I ran into more than one. I just happened to only be acquainted with one of those. So yeah, where is it going with all that? Okay, but yeah, we were pretty in touch with what was going on. On 24 February is where I remember I was sitting at Texas Roadhouse, and we were sitting. I was eating a steak.
What the fuck?
And well, because I was like, I thought it was crazy because I was talking to I was sitting at the bar and there was like a guy sitting next to me, and I was talking to you guys about literally we were in our Telegram chat actively chatting about Ukraine and sharing maps and stuff, some photos we had, and that's literally when I think one of you guys posted the notification, or maybe I saw it on Instagram or something. Within minutes of it being posted, we knew that freaking they'd actually broken through the border and were hard charging, blitzing through. And I was talking to some guy at the bar or something, and he was like, "Oh, what's going on?" or whatever. Or we were just talking, and I was like, "Yeah, the news isn't even covering what's going on in Ukraine." And literally less than 10 minutes ago, Russia just broke through the Ukrainian border. Oh, welcome back, Traven. Oh, well, welcome. You haven't been on today. We sort of introduced you earlier.
Oh, did you? I should go ahead and introduce myself, or what's up with that?
What? Okay, hold on. So yeah, I was saying we were talking I was like, yeah, they're not even covering the kind of world stage is getting ready to change a lot due to this invasion. I was like, I don't know if the U.S. will get directly involved, but the world kind of stage is gonna change. And he was like, nah, he's like, that's crazy. No one cares about that country. He was like, it sucks. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He was like, yeah, I've never even heard of it until the news recently. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I was like, cool. Which honestly sums up a solid percentage of Americans about the whole thing.
It does. I don't think anybody knows that Fuji is a fucking country. Plenty of others. You could probably mention Somalia, even though that was a really recent thing in the 90s that we were involved in. People probably still don't know Somalia is still a country.
Dude, Yemen is happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's if you ask somebody about Grenada or Kosovo, they're like, "What's that?" You're like, "Dude, that's not even international history. That's also Ukraine military history too." No one knows.
Grenada, that's that liqueur, right?
Grenadine.
So yeah, but and it was when that happened, I was like, maybe I could just go, even if I can't get a contracting gig, is it necessarily about the money? Why do I want to do contracting? Ultimately, for them, it was the money. I needed a change of my life in general. I wasn't unhappy. I just, I really wanted some cash, and I wasn't getting paid super great for where I live, and whatever. But I was like, why do I want to do this? I kind of started thinking more about it, and then I ultimately started seeing the videos coming out of Ukraine. One that I referenced was a Ukrainian friend of mine showed me some pictures and videos of she's her family moved to the US many years ago, a long time ago, but they're from Ukraine, and she was showing me pictures of her Ukrainian friends that decided to stay where they were in Eastern Ukraine. And it was the mom teaching the kids and just working on chores around the house by literally the dads were out basically defending the neighborhood, and then that was their life. And I was like, dang, stuff like that just really hit me hard at home. I was like, I preach and talk about independence for the U.S. and I want my personal freedoms, and I don't want to be held down by laws, rules, regulations, much less an entire second government invading me. I was like, I could go make a difference, and ultimately that's why I went. It took me, I kind of had made up my mind after a few days. I think I gave myself, if I remember correctly, 7 days. And I said I wasn't gonna actually make a decision, much less a public decision for 7 days. And so I thought about it for a few days, kind of just really mauled on it and considered it, thought about all my options, and I was like how my life would basically be entirely different.
Shoot it down
and
to the bone.
oh yeah, like it was like I think I even talked to a lot of you guys, or I think actually all of you guys about it.
Yes, you did.
And I was like, hey, like here's what could happen. Here's what's going on there. Like, should I care? Like, is it wrong for me to care? Is it wrong for me not to care? If I do care and, you know, want to make a difference, should I just do something about it myself? You know, should I just donate money, donate to people going, or should I go? You know, it was like a lot of decision making. I mean, leaving a by no means cushy job, but, you know, leaving a job that I had worked at for 2 years to go to another country that I
You
didn't
were
speak the
relatively
language.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Especially
going
comparatively.
Yes, exactly. Going to a country that I didn't speak their language, Russian or Ukrainian. I knew literally about half a dozen Russian words, and no Ukrainian at all.
Shout out Tarkov.
I have two questions.
Yes.
The first one's probably relatively quick to answer. How long passed between you seeing these things happening and making the decision to leave your job and leave everything else and go and do this?
So I think it was. So if we actually say the invasion was on the 24th, well, I mean, the invasion was on the 24th of February.
No. I'm not concerned with when things happened. I'm when you saw it to the time that you decided to leave.
Yeah, so I mean, it was kind of like in the back of my head. And when the initial invasion happened, there's probably a 2-day period of me just ingesting, and I mean, I would say us ingesting a lot of that information and news before, you know, from our sources on just, you know, whether it was Reddit or 4chan or, you know, Instagram, whatever. And then I had several at that point, a half dozen Ukrainian friends here in the States that I was talking with that had family there. Firsthand, or I guess technically that would be like secondhand accounts of like what's going on, how it's impacting them. That instantly was like, hey, I could do something about this. Like, you know, would I personally make a difference? Maybe not, but is it fair to, you know, talk about supporting it and not going to do it? Kind of like what I just mentioned. But I think from that point, so we'll say maybe like February 26th, was when I really, you know, towards the end of February, really started like thinking about it heavily. And then I gave myself 7 days to, I think it was 7 days to like make an answer, to have an answer for myself and then talk to family and kind of confirm everything. But I think probably it took me about 4 days to really like, I had mostly made up my mind at that point. And then from there it was like, you know, just making sure. Because what I didn't want to do is like have like an impulsive thought of, hey, I'm going. You know, there's people hurting people. I need to go help. Like, because I mean, we even talked about, hey, is me going to Ukraine a waste? Like, if I really wanted to help people, should I just go somewhere local, or should I go to South America, or, you know, go to Mexico and, you know.
Well, and then there's also the conversation of is the way that you went about it the best way, or would it have been better if you just went to Eastern Europe and started doing some volunteer work with a medical aid organization or something like that? Like, there's so many different ways that you could have helped, and I think people might be interested in how you arrived at the conclusion that you did.
Good point.
You talked earlier about how it was your friends, you know, giving you their personal experiences that kind of tipped the scale for you. Is that what made you choose to get involved in this conflict specifically, as opposed to, you know, applying your thought processes to something like the Myanmar conflict that was already happening at the time?
Yeah. So I would say yes, because I think at that point it made it more personal. Like, my knowledge of Ukraine pre-2022 was I played, DayZ, I've played Stalker, like mostly media, like pop culture, and mostly even like video game references of Ukraine, like whether it be Tarkov or DayZ, whatever. And I was aware of like the 2014, 2013 stuff as far as like the protests, the invasion of Crimea, but I didn't have like this extensive understanding of Ukraine. So, oh, nice shirt, Traven.
Nice shirt, Traven.
But I didn't have like this extensive understanding until 2022. So that stereotype of saying, oh, you Americans, they didn't even know about Ukraine before this happened. I would say to an extent, I think that's true. Like, I knew it as a country. I knew that it had some, background with, fighting Russia. I knew it was a former Soviet Union country. I knew they spoke, just kind of the basic, like, I could probably find this in 15 minutes on Wikipedia. But I think it was my friends, I guess that would be secondhand experiences that ultimately, like, impacted me personally. Like, it made it more personal. Seeing their, like, hey, like, I don't want to dox my friends personally, they wouldn't appreciate that, but say, oh, hey, this is my best friend from childhood that is, fighting, or they just had to flee because their village was getting attacked, or this family, I grew up with them and they decided not to flee, and the wife is in their basement teaching the kids and doing like just house chores with the kids and sewing. I know there was one picture of the wife and the kids sewing camo netting. Well, once again, this is the story I referenced earlier. Their husbands fighting down the road, and I was like, that's what really hit home for me. And I think made it personal for me. I think if I would have seen this on the mainstream news, like that was my only understanding, I don't think I would have went. And I think that's why what a lot of people don't necessarily understand is, one very common thing, sorry, I'm not looking at the camera, staring, looking at my keyboard. I think probably one of the common things I get told is, hey, you were brainwashed by mainstream, Democrat media to go to Ukraine. Like, the amount of times I've been told that, or I couldn't count on 10 hands. It's like, hey, you fell to the liberal propaganda on, from the news. It's like, no, I really didn't. I realistically had no idea what the news was putting out before I went, or like mainstream news. I really had no idea what they were putting out before I went or while I was there. Like, I remember, like, while I was gone, I would text you guys or my family and be like, hey, so what's the news saying about all this? Like, Dude, when I did have access to it.
Coverage was absolute garbage. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The little bit of information that I got from you was leaps and bounds more insightful as to what was actually happening than anything that you could have gotten from the news. And, what... At the time that you were leaving, I didn't know that was your motivation. So, like, it's interesting for me to hear that that's how you reached the decision that you did, because just from the outside looking in, I could certainly understand where people would think, like you described, like, hey, you got hoodwinked by, the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And tricked into risking your life for Raytheon stock. Like, it does appear that way. It does appear that way from the outside, but like, it's good to hear that that's not how you reached the decision that you did.
Yeah, it was very strange going, and I mean, and even being back too. Like, I'm just gonna, like, the whole, I don't even know what to call it. Like, and I'll go into plenty more in depth later on in future episodes about, what it's like being back or while I was there. But, being back, I've had, so many people just, like I said, hey, you fell victim to the liberal media, the propaganda, or you were just, I don't catch this much anymore. This is one that I caught mostly while I was over there. It's like, oh, you're just a clout chaser. you're just there to make TikTok videos and come home and, you know, meanwhile you just sat in a hotel room and, you know, didn't do anything, or, hey, you just went over there because you were bloodthirsty, you know.
How many times did you get called war tourist?
Initially a good bit. When I finally actually started doing well, I mean, I would consider, with the exception of the first week or two, I would say I was always doing some sort of work. But until I was actually like out on the front, I think that was a pretty relative occasion. I even had some friends, not say war tourists, but hey, you know, you're upset that you didn't join the U.S. military, so you're just looking for the next big action sequence or whatever. And I mean, realistically, that's not why I didn't. Like, I had the opportunity to join the U.S. military. I did go to a military.
You didn't
college
support imperialism.
Oh yeah, dude, the amount of messages I got from who I would consider, I mean, and even to this, even to an extent today, like personal friends, like you should just be joining your own country's military and fighting for your country. No other countries matter.
Man, French Foreign Legion would like to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I even had one kid. He was like,
foreign soil for no reason.
Yeah, it was quite absurd, like the amount of things that, you know. I mean, I've gotten everything from, you know, random people hugging me and thanking me, and all the way to, you know, war tourist or, you know, liberal propaganda machine. I mean, and that's not why I went over there. I didn't go over there for praise or to get beat down or to prove a point to me or anyone else. You know, I ultimately went over there to help people. And that's probably the biggest thing I want to convey to our audience, all of 2 people or whatever watching right now. But, you know, I went over there to help. There was no selfish, I, at the time, and had no idea that I would be paid. I didn't go over there to pay. I literally sold almost all of my, well, I mean, yeah, really almost anything of value I sold. I did end up taking some donations. That's realistically what got me over there. I lived relatively paycheck to paycheck before I left.
Okay.
And then, you know, through donations and me selling my stuff is ultimately what kickstarted and allowed me to go. So it clearly wasn't for the money. I was going over there with the intention of essentially just hoping I can pay the remaining amount of my lease and my apartment with donations or what I could continue to sell. I know I left some stuff with you guys even and family to be like, hey, please sell this. Just pay this bill off with the money, you know, whatever. So, you know, that's the biggest thing I want to convey is I went over there to help. And that was part of my main decision process of like, why do you, like, that was one thing I continued to ask myself during those 7 days, was like, why do you want to go? Like, do you want to go for, you know, reasons that, you know, you're not being honest with yourself about? Because, like, ultimately, if I got into a situation that could potentially get me or someone else killed, it's like, you know, going over for selfish reasons. And I think that's a lot of the reason. I think a lot of people going over there, even to this day, are doing it for selfish reasons. Not necessarily for the money, but to prove something to themselves or others. And ultimately, that's the people you don't want to be in a foxhole with. And I say that with all offense. Like, if you're going over there for the wrong reasons, or if you're enlisting in the U.S. military for the wrong reasons, doing anything really for the wrong reasons, you shouldn't be doing it. And that was something that I continually asked myself for those 7 days, which, I mean, is not a long time to contemplate something major, but at that point, time was critical. People were dying. Russia had a 40-kilometer convoy pushing through, just blitzing through, and, you know, whatever. I finally decided I was going. I think it was like March 5th or something is when I booked my tickets. The plan was to fly out of Atlanta to Warsaw, Poland. I spent 4 days in Warsaw, I believe, basically getting supplies that I was unable to fly with. Dude, packing for a so essentially when I started packing, I had a lot of what I needed. Like, I had my armor, I had a plate carrier, which I ended up replacing. I had a Spirit of Slickster that I ended up giving away over there that I took, but I don't want to have my main, like, my main plate carrier, a Slick, with elastic cummerbund. So I ended up buying an FCPC, ended up buying a lot of stuff that I just, like, prepping's not the right word. Being a gear enthusiast in the States, especially with a focus on potential, civil unrest or anything similar. Like, I mean, realistically, as Americans, we're very privileged and don't have to think about, oh my god, Canada might invade. We really don't have to think about stuff like that.
Of course not. Fallout already taught us that we could annex Canada. Let's do it today.
I love my Canadian friends. I have a lot of you guys. Y'all are great, but y'all are really no threat.
Good question.
I'm sorry.
FCPC.
Like we're really privileged as Americans of not having to think about, oh no, a major world superpower might invade our country. So when I had my gear here in the
Traven was trying to ask you a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, hey, is that FCPC multicam black? I heard that's pretty good in keeping you camouflaged in a dense wood.
So fun fact, the Slickster I took over there was multicam black.
Cringe.
That was like, hey, that was like my urban kind of low profile carrier that I could potentially like wear under jackets here, in the States. Which, in my opinion, I still think multicam black is one of the better options for that. Especially if you're trying to wear a jacket over it or something.
Wrong.
Okay. I'll die on that hill. I think it's alright. I think it's still kind of drippy. I still have my Ultimas in multicam black too.
Like Weast.
Oh. What just happened to my phone? My camera? Well, we don't have a... Oh. Well, webcam's down at the moment. We'll bring that back up later. I should buy. So fun fact, I use one of my backup phones as my webcam. So yeah, I got an FCPC. A lot of the gear choices that I would make here in the States for civil unrest or whatever it may be, it's very different than hey, I need actual side plates for things, or hey, I really need to consider artillery being a one of the biggest culprits of getting killed over there. It really makes you kind of rethink things. Something as simple as even like combat pants and potential cold weather. And then things here, trying to like we have the commodity of, hey, my weapon light, I'm running out of batteries for it. Let me go run down to my local Walmart or Amazon Prime 2-day ship new batteries to me. You don't have that ability there to just run down to the store and get something. So it was very hard to try and balance like everything from weight for my luggage to like space and how much like I could feasibly carry. Like how was I going to operate? What was I going to be doing out there? Was I going to have a base? Was I going to be set up in a barn somewhere, like running ops and, coming back every few days? Like, really had to think about a lot of that stuff. So basically the plan I put together with the help of you guys and family was, pack like I was going for 6 months. Like, I needed to sustain weapon lights, optics, soap, or even just basic, like, what we would see as, like, a commodity, like soap, it's like, hey, do I take 1 bar of soap? Like, can I even buy soap in that country right now? What about this flashlight batteries? I mean, batteries were probably one of the biggest things. Or, like, power banks. Like, I ended up taking a solar panel. I was like, what if I don't have access to power for weeks on end? Medical supplies.
Did that happen?
I think the longest I ever went without, like, I would say, let's say the longest we as like a unit or the people I was with ever went without power, whether it was like a generator being tapped into the grid, was probably about a week. With that said, I was being the tech
surprisingly
nerd that
short.
I am. Yeah, it was never too terrible. Fuel, while not super common, I mean, fuel runs everything, so if we had access to a generator, and we usually have access to fuel. So, I think worst case, there were a couple weeks where we were able to get internet for about an hour every couple days, which, and not just internet, but power in general. Like, I know there were some times where one of our supply lines, well, our only supply line was about to be cut off. And so, like, if, for example, if we had to go to the fob or, anything other than our, front, well, I guess technically what we were staying as fob. If we had to go to, like, a main base, or go get supplies, whether it be fuel, ammo, grenades, weapons, whatever, we would literally have to drive through like a tank alley where, you immediately, like, basically you turn a corner and whether it was drones or line of sight, like, you were getting shelled within, 15, 30 seconds. So during that time, like, fuel, a lot of things were very short. Food was kind of short. We weren't going hungry, but it was kind of like, hey, we don't know how long all this food's going to last, so we kind of need to consider, not pigging out every, whatever. And when I say pigging out, I mean, like, actually eating properly. So there were points where we were rationing food and things like that, where we might not have power for a week or, every few days get an hour to charge our stuff. But being the tech guy I went over there with enough power banks to last me for days. And you could even argue, like, months. Like, I mean, my phone, if I put it into, like, an emergency power mode or something, it could last easily, several days, up to, a week or two, depending on how extreme I take that. Or just turn it off entirely. But yeah, I went over with enough power banks to keep me going comfortably for several days. So, there was never, or I don't think there was ever a time where I didn't have power to at least charge my phone. Or, a flashlight or something like that. But packing to go over there was quite intense. Just trying to, like, think through all these things. Like, I had multiple packing lists and then, like, strategic lists of how I needed to pack things, what bags were going to be overweight. How was I going to be operating? I really realistically went over there without a plan.
Yeah.
I know that sounds
especially
relatively
knowing
crazy.
that, like, your life could depend on your decisions at some point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, something as simple as, like, not getting a water filter or something like that. So making a decision like that could have, like, not getting one or choosing not to pack one could literally end up, killing me. So the packing decisions were very important, and then realistically, I didn't have a plan going over there. I had, like, kind of a ballpark estimate of what I wanted to do. Getting there was nearly impossible as far as, like, getting a plan. Yeah, Ukraine opened up, applying to the Foreign Legion, things like that. I did just, for the heck of it, apply.
You were already there at that point, right?
No, the first wave, they started before... probably around March 5th, I think, was when that wave kind of started. They were like, hey, apply to the Foreign Legion. But they were so bogged down. Like, I did submit a request, and I actually heard back, like, 4 weeks later. And they were like, hey, we'd love to interview you. And I literally replied, and I was like, hey, I'm already plugged in. I'm here in the country. Like, I appreciate you emailing me back, but my information was sent to you guys, like, 4 weeks ago. And that was kind of how it, like, things were changing so rapidly. When you're trying to plan, even a week in advance, it was impossible. You basically needed to show up and get plugged in. I did have a friend that, they're single-handedly responsible for me getting to where I did and how I did. This is the same friend that left in January to come to the States that I spoke about earlier. They gave me a list of contacts, phone numbers, the city that the individual was in, to say, hey, they just told me to message them at any time. They had already talked to them and communicated with them, and they were willing to help me in any way they could. And so if I ever got in a bind, just pick a number off the list in the city closest to you and give them a call or a text. So that was extremely helpful. And through those contacts, I was able to get picked up from the border. When I crossed, I had somewhere to stay for a few days. And then through some of those contacts, I was able to get housing for about my first month there, which was just such a blessing.
when you arrived at the border, you already had contacts in place, and you were in touch with people that were going to get you through.
Yes. So basically, the way it worked, I guess, it's hard to kind of tell the story because you do have to bounce around a little bit. But so I think it was like March 19th. Sean, who was not in here earlier.
Okay, so hold on. For context, March 19th. This is how many days after you arrived in Poland?
No. March 19th, I was still in the States. So,
Okay.
March 19th, a friend picked me up. I met in a meeting in Atlanta with a lot of you guys, to just kind of do one last hurrah kind of thing. I hadn't seen some of you guys in a while. Well, and some of y'all hadn't seen each other in a while either. So we were in Atlanta, and we all got dinner. We swapped some gear around. I needed some at that time, some contacts, and one of the other guys not in the group had some that he gave me. And then so it's just kind of like some last minute things, last minute hoorah. You guys took me to the airport. I hopped on the plane. Fun fact. I don't know what statute of limitations is in Georgia, but there was a a COVID test requirement for me to get on the plane. That was taken care of. That's all I'll say on that. Then got on the plane, flew to Warsaw, Poland. One of the contacts, one of the contacts my friend here in the States, my Ukrainian friend, gave me, the girl's in Poland, and so I got in contact with her before I even left for Poland. She ended up meeting me and helped me out finding somewhere to stay. And then through her friends and family, me and one of the guys I met in Poland, well, two of the guys I met in Poland, were taken to the border. So, rewind a little bit, I had been talking to a couple guys on Discord, in one of the big Discord, like, I'm a Ukrainian volunteer chats, about, one guy, about going. Him and I talked for a while. He was contingent on going, assuming that his passport would get taken care of. And we'll put a pin in that. I met a guy on the plane from London. I had a layover in London. I met him. So him and I started talking in line at customs. I mean, it was very obvious why he was there. Like, you could pick people out of the crowd, like whether it was a military haircut and, a multicam backpack or, whatever. You knew why some of these guys were going to Poland.
Right.
And so him and I started talking, and sure enough, we were both flying into Warsaw. We both had the same plan of helping in any way we essentially could. We were both planning on staying in Warsaw for, 3 to 5 days to get equipment. So we were like, hey, let's go get a hotel together. So we ended up getting a hotel. The next morning, or maybe later that night, I get a text from the guy I've been talking to on Discord, and he's like, dude, I made it. My plane just landed. Are you in Poland? Like, what's up with you? And we ended up meeting up with him, and turns out he became one of my best friends over there. We hung out together for the next, 6 months. And the other guy that we met, so we all ended up getting a hotel room together for a few days, got our supplies, and then all three of us got taken to the Ukrainian border by a friend of, by one of my contacts I was given. And from the Ukrainian border, once we made it through, there was another contact waiting there to pick us up. They drove us and then actually they ended up paying for a taxi also because they weren't really anticipating just how much gear we had. I think I literally walked across the border with a, Blake, what model rucks do we have? The Molly 2000s?
Molly 4000.
Molly 4000s. So I walked across the border with a Molly 4000 on my back with sustainment pouches, multiple sustainment pouches. It was probably in the ballpark. At that point, it was well over, say again.
Like a 60-liter bag.
Yeah, so, with the sustainment bags, I was probably in the ballpark of, almost 90 liters. Because I think my sustainment bags are 9 liters each, and then I had several other smaller ones. A Pelican case, a rollable Pelican case. I forget what model it is, but I mean it's huge. It's bigger than a standard suitcase that you check when you like a standard check bag. And then I had a big Army A bag that was full. I mean, all those weighed at least 60, 70 pounds. And then plus I had another just like my my black EDC bag. So I walked across the border with 4 bags total, all weighing easily, add it all up, 250 to 300 pounds. And I think pretty much the 2 guys I was with both of them had less than I did, but it was still a quite substantial amount. Like, I think each of them probably had 150 to 200 pounds of gear.
Okay, so now you're at the border. You're with these 2 guys.
Yeah.
You guys are getting ready to cross. So I just want to ask you 2 questions. Like, in that moment right there, what's going through your mind? Are you feeling elated? Like, is there a little bit of adrenaline going through? Are you rethinking your decision?
So at that moment, it's funny you asked that. So the whole van ride there, like, I think it wasn't like super serious for us then. Like, we were all joking, laughing, messing about. But I mean, ultimately, I think all of us at that point, we didn't know when we would necessarily have, because I was on an international cell plan. I always wanted to have a backup. I think both of them were too. But it was kind of one of those things where our cell service was going in and out. We were both taking notes on, for family or, what if, just think about what ifs. But then when we got to the border, dude, I have pictures. I should have actually prepared. I will do that for the future episodes, have pictures prepared to kind of follow along. I wish I would have done that. But, dude, we pull up to the Polish-Ukrainian border, and there are, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it was like homeless tent city, dude. Like, they had like a little like border shop set up. It was almost like, imagine
in
like
which direction?
So we were on the Polish side of the border, and it was like tent homeless city, dude. There were FEMA tents, UN tents.
Was it Ukrainian refugees?
Yes, yeah. It was a refugee camp. Like I said, there were FEMA tents, UN tents, church tents from the middle of nowhere in Alabama that sent a team to come help. Random dudes from all over the world just coming and saying like, dude, the amount of different languages you can hear there was hilarious. Like Spanish, English, any of the major languages around the world. You could walk through that camp and just hear, just people the same nationality talking, this, that. Like, and then these tired, hungry, dirty Ukrainians just, like, walking across the border, like, humanitarian groups handing out stuffed animals to kids that lost literally everything. Dude, like, the feeling and emotion in that moment was like, this is why I'm here. Like, I made it very clear to myself, and I think you guys, like, I'm not going over there to politically by any means fight for Ukraine or the government of Ukraine. I will kind of go off, hot take. Ukrainian government's corrupt. Like, really corrupt. You know what else?
Whoa.
What other governments are corrupt? The US, the Russian, literally every NATO, literally every government in the world, which ultimately
it's cool, man. You can just say all of them. Yeah,
all of them. And that's a large reason that I've personally never, I'll use the word served in the US military. I don't want to be a slave to a system that I just don't agree with. A lot of what they back and support. I don't want to do that. Everything I do, I want it to be voluntary. I don't want to be forced to fight for something that I may or may not believe in.
Oh yeah, and then like plenty of our buddies that did, and they served quite a long time in GWAT, even some in special operations, agreed. Yeah, you really don't want to just pour your life into this, They were like, a lot of them felt that the entire war was for nothing for them. They're glad to have met the people that they did. They loved the military for the people, but for everything that happened, they're like, it was senseless. I did nothing but waste 10 years of my life for the army, to try to help this region that was never going to be helped.
Yeah, there's some of I'll use the word us, our friend group. There's more than one of us that have served some pretty significant time doing some pretty hood rat things that don't regret it in the sense of, it's the friends we made along the way, like you said, but are in pretty substantially, I would say, messed up from it.
Oh yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And I'll talk more about, the kind of psychological and emotional effects of gunfighting and, being in combat in future episodes.
Almost universally, those folks recommend against it.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think is also worth noting.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good side note in that. And, like I said, I'll go into more kind of in-depth stuff later in future episodes about, hey, what it's like to be shot at for the first time, or, this or that, or, things like that. But yeah, yeah, Grantham has an episode on that. But my heart really goes out, and this is something that the American people specifically, not our generation, but and not really even our parents' generation, but our grandparents' generation, like the Vietnam era, that was our most recent American draft. My heart hurts so bad for the people and the men that died in Vietnam or that lost friends that had no realistic idea what they were fighting for. Yep. Like
or just straight up didn't want to be there.
Yeah,
they found out within the first 2 years, pretty much. Like morale went out the window.
Yeah, like, and this isn't because I watch some news or watch Deer Hunter or another insert Vietnam movie, but like that was a serious thing. Like suicide rates in Vietnam are quite high. You talk to some Vietnam vets, and yeah, I knew Joey, and he hated being there. He didn't want to be there. He didn't believe in the war, but yet he was there fighting, and he did his job because he's fighting for his brothers. But I could not imagine fighting for a cause that I didn't believe in or didn't understand.
Yep.
Like that baffles me. And it was in that moment of kind of going across the border, seeing all these people, seeing quite literally in front of me the cause that I was fighting for, or would be fighting for and standing for. At minimum, at that point, believing in and standing up for, even if I wasn't fighting for it then. It was just like overwhelmingly like, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. I met one guy at the border. I wish I could remember his name. If I remember correctly, he was a doctor from, I don't remember, maybe a nurse. I don't remember exactly, but he was in the medical field. And he was walking back and forth carrying bags for Ukrainians. And he'd already gone back to the US, or was needing to go back soon, because he'd filled up his entire passport. And the border guards like knew him by name at that point, and they would just see him and like stamp him. But he was carrying bags and luggage from one bus stop across the border to the next bus stop for people. And he got behind us in the customs, or in the border line, and it was this so in Ukrainian, an older lady, specifically more referred to as like a grandma, they're called babushkas.
Babushka.
And there was an older babushka behind us in the line who, I mean, hunched over, just, very old, frail, carrying, it was groceries, if I remember correctly. And because depending on, what time frame of the war, groceries and commodity items were in some way sometimes impossible to get. I'll get into more in depth about that. Actually, I think next episode we're going to talk about my first week or two there. And so, and sure enough, this guy is behind us, and we're like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? You clearly don't look Ukrainian or Polish, and we heard you talking English earlier. He's like, oh, hey, guys. He's like, what are you guys here doing? And, we're like, we're here to help. And he kind of talks. Yeah. Yeah. And so we start talking for a few minutes, and he's like, dude, I've been here for 2 weeks now. He was like, I need to go back soon. He's like, I'm running out of paid leave at work, or my leave at work, before they're going to fire me. He was like, yeah, he was like, I saw what was going on. He was like, I came over to potentially do medical work. He's like, I'm a doctor, nurse. I don't remember exactly what he was. He was like, I want to help the refugees at the border in any way I could. And he's like, when I came over here, I found that, there were already plenty of doctors and nurses here helping people. He's like, but what I didn't find was, he was like, I was watching these ladies drag their bags walked 5 meters and set their bags down at the border because they physically didn't have the energy or emotions to carry their stuff. He was like, so, yeah, I ended up coming. I told work I wasn't coming back for at least 2 weeks and to fire me if they needed to, but let me know when they were going to and I'd head back, to at least, properly quit. He was like, because, he's like, I found my purpose in life right now. He's like, my wife, he's like, I didn't want to fight. He's like, I have no idea how to fight. He's like, I've never picked up a gun in my life. He's like, my wife wouldn't be happy if, I went and fought not knowing what I was doing. He was like, but my wife's so happy I'm here. I send her pictures every day. He's like, I found a need and I found my calling. So I'm just carrying bags for people that can't carry their own belongings. He's like, a lot of the people I talk to, he's like, I'll, use translator. He's like, sometimes I won't even speak a word to them. He said, but they try to give me a hug or thank me. And he's like, I don't do it for that. But he's like, just seeing people that are carrying quite literally all the belongings they have left in the world across the border in like sacks. He's like, it's just heartbreaking. And that's why I will continue to do until work fires me.
That's real Chad behavior right there.
Oh yeah, if he ever one day sees this, I wish I could remember his name. I might maybe have a picture of him or something.
And it's worth noting that behavior like that, no matter how much commies might want to believe it, it can't be forced. That is something that's so genuine and from the soul that like we can't even still explain why there's people like that on the earth when there's the total opposite that are probably majority of people walking the earth that would probably like spit, at people that had nothing left trying to escape a conflict that might have taken their lives at, best if they were still back home,
Yeah. Like you're right. That can't be that has to come like from your heart. Like your heart and soul has to be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to help somebody in any way I can today. And he came over to do medical stuff and he's like, honestly, he's like, there just wasn't necessarily a need for me. And he was like, so I looked over and I saw people not being able to carry their own belongings. So he's like, I'm going to do it for them.
That's almost like a story you read about in like how we look at people from World War II, dude. Like these conflicts, these big ass conflicts, and it's like, oh wow, this guy said something like, really fucking cool, did some really good shit for people around him. He's like, I came here for this work, which is like already really cool work. But he's like, but there was already enough of that, so instead I started helping all these people with their belongings, and it's like, that's deep, dude.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, talking to him and seeing the stuff at the border, like, it really just kind of set in stone. I was like, hey, I'm in the right place. So we crossed the border. I just remembered about this. So we get to the Ukrainian side of the border, and the border guard speaks, I would like to say no English. I mean, she knew about as much English as I knew Russian or Ukrainian at the time.
Yeah.
And she, obviously, it's very evident that the three of us are not necessarily, we're not military, but it's like, hey, we're not here as doctors, While all of us had basic medical training, and we would, if that's where we're needed, that's what we're gonna do. But all of us have some sort of combat kit or something with us.
Yep.
And she's like, Army, and we were like, no. And she was like, why are you here? Or, oh no, she was like, Legion. And we're like, no, not Legion. Because at that point, we'd all there were stories coming out of the Legion. Thanks, Mike Dunn and Henry, whatever absolute buffoons.
Go fuck yourself, Mike Dunn.
Henry Doofenspurs.
Yeah, I forget Henry's last name. He was the one that submitted that video. He was like, don't come here, the Ukrainians are shooting us. And they won't let us leave and all this. Yeah. But yeah, well, regardless, don't join the Legion. I will still stand by that. They might not be shooting you, but just don't join the Legion. She was like, Legion, and we're like, no. And she was like, at this point we're like using Google Translator because she's like pointing to our camouflage, and she's like, forma, like uniforms, and we're like, Camouflage, yes. And she's like, Legion. And we're like, no. And then at this point, we're like on Google Translate, and she's like, why are you here? And we're like, to help. And she's like, Legion. And we're like, no, we're not in the Legion, and we're not joining the Legion. And they want to know that because there's like a Legion recruiter, like they're on site, and they're going to bus you straight to the Legion base down the road, and that's where you're stuck. And we... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll come after you.
Okay. We were just trying to make it very clear, like, and at that point, the three of us weren't fully convinced that we needed to fight. Like, our whole goal was to help where we were needed, and if we weren't needed to fight, like, we weren't necessarily going to fight. Like, it was a complete open thing. Like, if we get to Kyiv and, you know, it's still under, or, you know, it's fighting not to be occupied, and, you know, there's a, you know, medical tent that has 0 doctors or medics there, like, yeah, we were all TCCC, not necessarily not certified by any means, but, you know, we all knew TCCC, and we'd been more than happy to do that. You know, we wanted to help, so we didn't want to get roped into, you know, Legion. And so this goes back and forth for like 5 minutes. She's getting upset at us, because I was the first one in line. I was the guinea pig. And so she's like upset at the three of us, like asking, she wasn't like reaching for a gun, but she was like very defensive, which was actually like, we all found it kind of funny. Like, we were all making jokes about it, while we were also like worried we were about to get domed in the middle of the freaking border.
I mean, it could have been that an intel report had been put out to some of them, like, hey, there might be Russians within the group, you know, or pro-Russian, you know, people in the groups.
I mean, yeah, but...
Know, they could easily try to...
And that, yeah, and that's possible. And they ended up, like, someone that spoke slightly better English, I guess it was a supervisor, like, came out of a side office. And I would also like to add, all of these border guards had, like, so police / like that kind of camo, it's basically like olive drab. It's very similar to like how US operates as far as like their police. A lot of times like their combat uniforms are just combat police uniforms. What kind of ironic crap is that? Are like olive drab, and the chick's got a Makarov, and we're like, oh, cool, you know, like that's the way we just kind of found that all ironic. And then like her supervisor comes out with like an underfolding AK, and we're like, oh, this is even like more hilarious. And so they're like talking to us, and they're like, so you're here for the Legion? We're like, no, we're trying to explain we're not here for the Legion, we're here to help. And they're like, so why are you bringing military equipment? We're like, to protect us. And they're like, so you have guns? And we're like, no, we don't have guns. Like, how many people have you had come across with guns? Like, none. Like, we don't have guns. They're like looking through our stuff, they find like gun parts, and they're like, OMG, what is this? And we're like, not a gun. And it kind of came into this whole ordeal of like, we're here to help. We have someone picking us up. You know, we're going to Kyiv to, you know, start work on just helping. And they were like, finally they let us go. But it was like this whole ordeal of like, Legion, no. Military,
it's like
no.
that meme.
Like,
it's like that meme of the guy that's like, they can't say treat in front of their friend. He's a full-grown dude, but they can't say treat. And it's like, treat? No. Treat? No. Oh.
And one of our guys, well, I'll just call him E. I'm sure he'll actually be on a future episode. Yeah, he's awesome. We're still good friends. He's the one that was waiting on his passport, and we talked on Discord, and then me and the other guy met on the plane, met him in Poland. But it was funny because he had a layover in Germany where they tried to seize all of his like optics and everything. He had a red dot, and he was like, these guys pulled me aside, pulled me in like a security room. He's like, were questioning me, like chewing me out. Were telling me that I was breaking laws for bringing night vision to Ukraine, or from the US. And he's like looking at this red. He's like, I'll have him explain this one day. But he's like, he was holding the red dot up, and he was like, how do you turn on the night vision? And so Eve like pulls it up and turns on the red dot, and he's like, you're lying. He's like, this is night vision. And he's like, no, it's a red dot. You have them on the MP5s in front of me. Like they're like, you know, German, so they all have MP5s. And they're like, no, you're lying. This is night vision. And he's like, no. And they literally made him like almost miss his flight, and it was like this whole ordeal.
Also, what does it matter if it is
ITAR?
Yeah, ITAR is export.
Well, yeah, they were saying that he was exporting them from the US into Germany and Ukraine.
So
when it was literally like a magnifier and a
why
red.
would the German police give a fuck
Yeah,
about
dude,
that?
they were so
That's
like
a
he was like they
United
were like
States law.
yelling at him and like cursing at him and like it just gave him hell. And then me and the other guy, I'd forgotten about this, and back in London, in our layover, when I met him, he was getting on the plane with me. We got stopped by, obviously not like MI6 or MI whatever they were, but they were like, you know, I guess the equivalent more like their FBI or something. And dude, we got asked a slew of questions. We both more or less told him
Where
to
is
pound
this?
sand in London.
Oh,
He was
MI5.
like, this is
Yeah.
this is right after a bunch of like British Army guys just basically told their commanders they were going on leave and then left the country. And so this guy's like interviewing us and like he was very upset. They held the plane because they were making us late. And we're standing in line, like handing them our boarding passes, and he tells the entire he shuts like the whole thing down. And I was like, yeah, no, get on the radio. They're not leaving. This plane's not leaving until they're on it, if they're allowed to go on it. And we're like, oh, okay. Watch me.
Thank you, but also
But-
thank you.
Yeah. So he's like asking us, he's like, so what are you guys doing? He's like, it's very evident that you two are, military. He's like, where are you from? He wanted to know like what states we were from, or if we could tell him our addresses. And he was like trying to like basically see if we had any sort of like accents in British or whatever. He was like, I need to know that you're gonna be safe. He's like, because especially if you're British, he's like, or American, he's like, we need to know that you're gonna be safe and you aren't doing anything dumb. We want to know why you're going. And then I literally almost verbatim was like, yeah, I heard you lost some British soldiers this week. Around like 350 deserted or something like that. And he literally like looks up and he's like, so you're American, right? And it was hilarious like watching his face of like utter just disbelief, because that was not public information at the time. Or at least not that I recall. I believe it was just kind of starting to float around, and like I don't think the Brits had even confirmed it yet. And he was like, it made him so upset, and they ended up like scanning my passport, and then talking. They literally got on the phone with. I was told it was Interpol, and they were like sending my passport to the FBI. Like they were like actively like investigating us to make sure that they were legit passports, that we were legit, where we came from. It was like this whole ordeal. But he ended up just being cool and letting us go. But I thought it was hilarious. He like closed that whole section of the airport down until it was decided whether or not we were allowed to leave. But anywho, so we get through the border, we get picked up. Our contact there didn't realize just how much stuff we had. We got picked up in a BMW 7 Series, like a newer one. So it was a large car,
Nice.
and we could fit maybe half of our stuff in it at best. So I think 2 of us go in the car or in the BMW. They pay a taxi to go to Lviv with the third guy. And then the other like half of our stuff. The taxi and our contact drop us off. We got separated. We had to like re-find each other. It was this whole ordeal. The train station was chaos. Like, I mean, everything was chaos. There were thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people like running around everywhere. Military dudes everywhere, like looking in people's bags, talking to people. It was this whole ordeal. We didn't know how to get a train ticket. So we'll just call them V, our contact. Ended up talking to them and getting all of our train tickets situated. Then a bunch of other people didn't speak Ukrainian or Russian either and didn't understand the train, so they started like buying or getting all their tickets for like a dozen people or so. They were like the heroes of the hour for the whole train station. We met some doctors that were going into Kyiv also. Soldiers are like sitting around in their body armor, talking to people. When I say body armor, I mean like literally just AR 500 plates and a piece of home-stitched vest.
Like 67 vest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And but like patrols everywhere. It was kind of like nerve-wracking because like I'm out of my comfort zone. We get talked to by soldiers. We don't know what freaking to do. Our contacts like trying to talk to them for us, say why we're here, who we are, and obviously we'd had good conversations at that point. So we finally get on the train. It took like so much time. We couldn't figure out which train was ours. They moved at platforms. Just something as simple as getting all of our gear up a flight of stairs was like a 10-person operation, or like several trips for the 3 of us. Then we finally got on the train and we like go to relax, and we realized that just because our gear's on the train doesn't mean that it's like secure and allowed to be just strewn in the aisle. So we're like packing all, and it was crazy, dude. So we finally get there. We get on the train. It's a long train ride. We get to Kyiv. I think the train stops a few times from like shelling. Because essentially when the air siren goes off, the air raid siren goes off, like the trains have to stop and turn their lights off so they don't get targeted. So it was like, at that point, it was like getting real. Like the potential of getting hit by, a rocket or missile or whatever was getting much higher than it, had ever been before for any of us. So we get to the train station, and it was like, I don't know, 11 at night. And what we didn't account for was Kyiv being on lockdown past like 7 o'clock, like 7 p.m. And so we can't leave the train station. And the train station doesn't have power. Like the power's out at the train station. And we're like, oh, cool. So we can't leave. And we're just kind of stuck here. So like air raid sirens are going off, whatever. So we're all like sitting there in our kit. Like we all put our plate carriers on, everything, in the middle of this train station. And we set our sleep, and we didn't really know the situation either at the time, because from our current understanding, there was a single road that had not been captured by the Russians in and out of Kyiv, plus the train system. So, I mean, and you could hear like the distant shelling hitting. Like you could hear the artillery pieces going off, whatever. So we're like sitting there in our plate carriers because we knew train stations had already been targeted. Like train stations all over the country had already been hit. So we finally get some sleep. We don't pull like shifts. Like we felt safe enough like in the train station to not have to worry about, like a stag watch or whatever. But we're still like in our kits. Obviously we don't have weapons at that point, but doing everything we can to kind of keep watch off after our stuff and each other. And so we're all asleep, and I get woken up the next morning to a gun in my face. And the dude's like kicking me with his boot, and he has like he's like in low port standing over me, and speaks broken English, but English. And he was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Get up." And he's like, "Come with me now." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And I literally look at him in the face, and I'm like, "I'm not going anywhere with you." And Elon, one of the guys, Elon's standing there, one of the guys that went with us, and he was like, no, he's safe. He's safe. We can go with him. He fed me breakfast. And we're like, and me and the other guy look at each other and then look at Elon, and almost in sync, we're like, "You sold us out for breakfast?" And he's like, no, he's friendly. He's Ukrainian. He's with the police. And once again, we kind of like look at each other, and we like look back at him, and he's like, "And you sold us out to the cops?" We were like, "Who is he? Why should we trust him?" And he's like, no, I'm friendly. I'm good. You trust. You pack your things up and come with me now. And we're like, "Why?" And he was like, "You need to come with me." He's like, you have to.
Jamey,
we're like, good.
Let's pause right here for a second, and let's summarize the events that have happened from the time that you left up until this part right now. That way, just for any future viewers or current viewers can just get a more concise idea of what everything is.
So
you leave.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. So left the States, or left Atlanta, arrived in Poland, Warsaw on the 20th of March, 2022. I was in Poland. I met a guy on the plane going into Poland, and then met another guy while in Poland that I had previously talked to on Discord. So it was the 3 of us.
Right,
we were.
I was gonna say right there. So You haven't met the other guy just yet. He's over in Germany. He's getting bag tagged and questioned.
Yeah, no, that's him.
You guys-
Yeah. He got hung up in the. So when we I left Atlanta. I had a layover in London, where I also met the other guy. We'll call him S. And so him and I got questioned in the London airport, while at the same time, or near the same time, the guy that I had talked to on Discord was getting questioned and like straight up interrogated in the German airport. Then we all kind of fly into Warsaw, Poland, and then we all end up meeting up, hanging out for a few days, and then going from Warsaw, Poland to the Ukrainian-Polish border, then going through there, get questioned by the border guard, have that whole fiasco.
Let's pause right here and bring a little bit of details into that. So you regroup at S&E. You guys go to the border. Now, at that point at the border, you're seeing all the FEMA camps. You're seeing the refugees.
Yeah, the refugee camp.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah, there's the refugee camp. The awesome guy that was carrying the luggage for the babushkas. Just lots of different languages, lots of people, UN, FEMA from all over the world. We have trouble at the border because they think we're trying to join the Legion, the Ukraine International Legion, but we're not. So we go through that. Then we're finally allowed through.
Pause real quick on that point right there. So let's make it very clear. Like, you can already tell from just that interaction right there that those individuals, well, let's just say mainly at the checkpoint, that they have a certain conception about the Legion. Because I'm pretty sure later on, maybe in the other podcast, I was going to go a little more into reasons why the Legion was, why they had that idea or that preconception beforehand.
Yeah, like we'd already decided we weren't going to be joining the Legion.
Yeah.
There, you got my camera back. But yeah, we'd already decided that. But at the border, they had like a Legion recruiting station that they wanted everyone to go through. Basically, they were essentially trying to get everyone in the Legion at that point. But we were not interested in that for various reasons. But yeah. So yeah.
The situation, because I find it a little odd for the fact that you were still not like odd in the sense of it didn't happen or anything like that, but I find it odd. It's like they want to funnel all these foreign guys to this Legion, but you were able to pass through. So
yeah. Well, from a logistical standpoint, it makes sense. Like, if you know you're going to be fighting, from a Ukrainian logistical standpoint, it makes sense for them to be able to funnel everyone to one location, or, one unit, that then they can work on dispersing, how they please, or, match people up to skill or training.
It's very similar to when people in World War II, you would have such an en masse of, after the Normandy landings, you'd had everybody from like Intel, admin, and all these other spots converging into this one point, and from that point they would just start pulling people like, hey, by the way, this unit's short of like 20 something guys now because of the landings. Pull that guy, and that guy. It didn't matter if their skill set at that time, but that was where plenty of guys like that ended up being tank crew and stuff like that. They were actually like fucking like Fury. They were headquarters guys, but they were there at the front because that's how you would disperse intel and stuff like that.
Yeah. Our thing.
You're misunderstanding the point that I'm trying to make. I understand all that. I completely understand. I'm saying it's taking into account of how desperate the situation is. You got this lady sees 3 military-age fighting males, and she's instructed to send them to the Legion. But the fact that you guys are telling me we're not there for that, we're there to help, and they're still able to bring you over into the border, circumventing that situation that they're trying to bring you into, to fill in those roles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that kind of goes. Oh, very. I mean, Ukraine at that point. I mean, Zelensky was like calling, "Hey, please come help. Send us funding, guns, people, money, anything." I mean, things haven't really changed much. But
John Wick 5. John goes to Ukraine. Guns, lots of guns.
Exactly. I mean, it was literally like, "Hey, come here and we'll give you a gun and you can fight." But yeah, they really wanted everyone in the Legion, and for logistically speaking, it's the right call, or well, it's smart from their point of view. But that kind of goes back to I'm not fighting for the Ukrainian government. Like I'd already looked at, joining militias or, there's a still that thunder thing. Still a very like popular like anarchist militia based out of Kyiv that's still to this day doing things and operating.
The 18, the Molotov drive-by boys.
Dude, there's so many of those. There's a well, I say so many. There's a few of them, and I looked at joining those because I mean those align the most with my political beliefs. But regardless, I was not there to fight for the Ukrainian government. Hence, I was not going to be joining the Legion.
Yeah.
But yeah, we finally get we finally get through the border. We get picked up by a contact. They take us to the Lviv train station, where they help us get tickets and everything to Kyiv, and then we have a long train ride to Kyiv. Finally get to Kiev, and there's no power, and there's in Ukrainian it directly translates to Commandant hour, which is basically just a curfew. It literally is like you can't be out past this time, or you get questioned or taken to jail or something. You need a password for walking or doing anything. So we spend the night in the train station. This guy wakes us up in the morning. He's got like he's clearly like Ukrainian government something. And
let's just let it call it at this point. I mean, it makes more sense at that.
Say again.
I said let's just call him a Ukrainian MP at this point. It just makes more sense.
It turns out that's literally what he was. But I don't know him, and E is just saying, "Oh yeah, I know he's friendly. He gave me breakfast." And the guy's just like, "Come with me. You get all of your things and come." And literally, I looked at like I'm not looking down his barrel, like he's low port and he's standing over me, but I'm like looking up his gun, like at his face. And I literally tell him, I was like, "I'm not going anywhere with you." I was like, "Who are you? What do you want? Why are we going with you?" I mean, because I'm very defensive at that point too, especially towards any government official. Like I came all this way not to get tied in with the Legion, and I'm not going to be sucked into anything or forced anywhere now. So E's like, no, he's okay. He's at least going to feed us and give us somewhere to stay for the day. We're like, all right, whatever. So me, S and E, we go with him, and the best way. So he helps us carry our bags, and he takes us to it's the equivalent. It would be like the Ukrainian equivalent of a Tahoe. I forgot who made it. But it's like this blacked out. It's not up armored, but blacked out tent. Tahoe has undercover like the unmarked cop car lights everywhere. Run flat tires. Not up armored, but it's clearly some kind of governmental police something. And so we load all of our gear up in the Tahoe. I'm just gonna call it a Tahoe for sake. And he's like, get in, and once again we're like, where are we going? And he's like, he's like, just down the road. And we're like, oh, whatever. Like we don't really have much of a choice or option at this point. So we hop in.
So you guys are hopping in this Ukrainian Tahoe with a guy that barely speaks English. Be honest with me. Do you think you're going to end up on like some live leak photos from this point on once you close those doors?
Dude, I wasn't sure. So it was him and his like assistant is what it turned out to be. And and both had like modern-ish kits, like kit on. Like they weren't the ones taking, like yeah, he had a Makarov, but I mean he had like a relatively Gucci AK and things like that. Like these guys clearly meant in some way business. So we really weren't sure.
Yeah.
Like I mean obviously they're Ukrainian, obviously they're government. From there it's like we don't know what to expect. Like are they here to capture us? Or are we about to get interrogated for the 15th time? What's going on? So
when you're basically making waterboarding an Olympic sport at this point.
Yeah, like we talked about it, and we're very edgy, but I mean at this point, like realistically, we can't do much else. Like yeah, we could probably technically tell them no, but then does that just look more suspicious? And then are we actually gonna get hit by a whole SWAT team? Like this isn't necessarily the time to, you know, try to stand up for, you know, potentially nothing. So we get in the Tahoe, we're driving down the road. At the time, I had no idea where we were. I mean, I hadn't spent any time in Ukraine, hadn't been there before. And he takes, like, we passed through like 15 different checkpoints. He has to show them his ID or whatever. And one thing we noticed was he was actually getting waved through a handful of checkpoints. Like when he would pull up, roll down his window, and they knew who he was. We're like, interesting.
Okay, pause right there. So this dude's carrying some fucking weight. He's essentially got the okay. You're in an up armored Tahoe of all things. You're not in a fucking up armored fucking Honda Civic.
Yeah. He's known.
You know. Oh, shit.
And
Yeah,
so like,
so
and we all pick up on that. Like, none of us are, you know, super secret squirrel people, but, you know, all of us, the three of us, were collectively quite observant and know what's going on. And so we're kind of talking amongst ourselves in the backseat, like making eye gestures and, you know, things like that. And due to the time of the war, like, the streets are locked down. Like, you can't go more than 2 blocks without passing, like, massive, like, H-barrier type concrete blocks with, like, makeshift checkpoints where a dude stands in front of your car kind of low porting an AK while someone else walks up to the car to check your ID and ask you where you're going and why. So, we pull up, we go through some of these headquarters, and then he takes us to this, building. He tells us to get out and to leave our things in their truck, and we were like, why? Like, are they gonna be safe? From you, from someone else? Who has the keys to this truck? Like, I remember I said, who has the keys? And he was like, only me. And I was like, so where are you gonna be? Are you gonna take the whole truck and take all of our stuff? And he was like, no, I'll be with you. And we're like, okay. So he goes down to like this, like, we walk down and we go into like this like dining hall kind of thing. And they give us like, he's like, eat. And he's like all proud that he's feeding us. I mean, we were hungry, so we were happy. And it's like this, I don't even know what it is. It's like, imagine like cheap like Ritz crackers and like a piece of ham and then like a piece of bread just like thrown together with a tea bag and a hot cup of water. And he's like, it's breakfast, too. And we're like, thanks, it's food. You know, so we're like eating and we're all kind of nervous, like looking around. And so he takes us up to like these offices. We finish eating and he takes us 3 up to these offices. And we're sitting there, and he goes, wait here. And we're in like a hallway, and there's like 3 chairs. So one of us is sitting on the floor. Because there's a person in the chair. Like, we turn the corner, and there's this dude with his hands tied, his feet are tied, and he's blindfolded. And he's sitting in this chair.
Oh, shit.
And then there's 2 chairs next to him, and he goes, sit. And so we like look at each other, and we sit down, we're like, well, boys, what's about to happen? And we hear like screaming in Russian Ukrainian from one of the offices that he goes in, or the office that he goes into. And we come to realize they're questioning someone in there. And we're like, dude, what is going on? I was like, we're literally about to just vanish off the face of the planet because we got captured by the Ukrainian military for who knows what. So some time goes by, we're kind of talking amongst ourselves, and then the door opens, and they like emphasis on drag. A guy wearing like a Russian POW with his hands tied, feet tied, blindfolded, can barely walk. He's got like blood-stained uniform on. He's like all bandaged up, and they're dragging him out of the room. And we all look at each other like trying not to look scared or like intimidated, and we're like, huh, that was a Russian. And we even like say that or something. And then the guy next to us goes in the room and gets questioned, the one blindfolded sitting in like this hallway in the chair. So now all 3 of us have a chair, so we were happy. And the guy goes in the room, and then he gets questioned, and then the guy walks back out, or the guy that drove us there like walks out, and he was like, okay, so we don't really know what to do with you. And we're like, what do you mean? And he was like, we need to have a talk. So we go into like another room, and he starts talking to us, and he's like, so we want to help you, and we want to like integrate you into a unit of maybe other people that speak your language and know what they're doing. He's like, but my supervisor's not here right now, or my commander, and he's like, I don't really know what to do, so we need to have a talk. He was like, because we want to make sure you're not a spy. And we're like, cool. I mean, we're not blindfolded, so clearly, we are, in a little bit better shape than the guys that you just interrogated.
Right. You're not starting from zero.
Yeah, so we have some trust built up. And he was like, so he takes us into the office next to that one. He's just kind of talking to us. Just, like, quite literally, I think he's just gauging us. He's not asking us any, like, targeted questions yet. And he's like, he was like, there's obviously been, like, a lot of foreigners, and he speaks decent English. Like, it's not perfect. It's slightly broken, but I mean, we're conversational. And he, like, pulls this backpack out from under this desk and pulls out a MacBook Pro. And he's like, you see this? We're like, yeah, that's very strange. Like, Apple products, we haven't seen any of those since we've been in Ukraine or, whatever. He's like, this isn't Americans. And we're like, we literally all look at each other. We're like, excuse me, what?
You motherfucker.
And he's like pulling out the contents of this Americans now that we know backpack and like setting it on the table. And we're just like staring at him, looking at the backpack like, we don't know what to make of this. And he was like, an American, he used this laptop to send Ukrainian position coordinates to the Russians. And we were like, excuse me? We're not here to do that. And he was like, well, I have a story. He was like, so a few days ago, he was like, I met an American very similar to you guys at the airport. Or not the airport, at the train station. He's like, I did the same thing. I drove him here. I talked to him. We had a conversation. And I felt like he was okay. So we let him go. And he was like, well, come to find out, he leaves our office and walks to the Ukrainian frontline position. He goes, which, by the way, are only 5 kilometers that way. And he, like, points. And he was like, only 5 kilometers. He's like, you can walk that. And he goes, so this man goes...
in 30 minutes or less.
Yeah. He's like, so the man walks to the front lines and takes photos and gets the coordinates with Google Maps or whatever, and then gets in Russian chats, and which I come to find out, knowing what I know now, are just the Russian Telegram chats. And he goes and sends the coordinates and all the photos he takes and puts them in the Russian Telegram chat and says, bomb these coordinates. And we're like,
God.
do what? And he was like, this is not a joke. He was like, this is what happened. So we immediately figure out what is going on. He's like, we arrest him, and I interview him again, and I ask him why would he do this and everything goes. And he said his response was, I wanted to see what it was like to be shelled and watch things get blown up.
Oh my god!
And we were like,
hold up, wait.
like, dude,
Whoa! So this dude basically, this motherfucker went on Russian Telegram chat. It was like, I'm about to war thunder this bitch. Drop this shit on my forehead right now.
yes, that is
average Reddit user.
verbatim what this guy explains to us, like the American's laptop he has. And we're just like, yeah, sir, that's crazy and all, but that's not what we're trying to do here. It's pretty self-evident that's not why we're here. And he was like, and I think you're telling the truth. He was like, I don't see why not. And so it's like this awkward silence for a minute. And the best way I can describe it is admin results video of Loose Asshole and Sergey when he meets them again at the Ukrainian museum, where he's like, bad museum, better war zone. He's like, so and Sergey's like, or Loose Asshole's like, so are we like prisoners? Are we being captured? And he's like, you are my guests, but you cannot leave. And like, I cannot sum up this whole thing better, because there's like a silence and we're like, yeah, so that's not us. Can we go now? And he's like, no. We're like, I'm sorry, how much longer are we gonna be here? And he's like, I don't know. He was like, we don't know what to do with you yet. So he was like, I believe that you're not gonna send coordinates, but you can't leave. And we're like, cool. He's like, okay, he's like, does anyone need to, he's like, use bathroom. He's like, toilet, they call it. And we're just, and he's like, yeah, I need to go. And he's like, okay. So he like walks him to the bathroom. And like at this point, several hours have gone by since he picked us up. And we're just like sitting there. I think I fall asleep. We have no cell service either. That's what made it worse. Is I believe they actually had cell jammers because like this whole like area had no internet, like at all, like no cell phone service. And that made it even more sketchy. Like we literally couldn't call home or like ask for help if we wanted to. Like there's no internet. I literally had an Ethernet cable in my laptop with me, and I'm like trying to plug into the Ethernet jack at the building, and there's no internet to that either. And so we're like sitting there, and finally he
You were on a black site, my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct. Like windows were blacked out. We had no idea where we were. We didn't even have GPS. Like we literally we had no idea.
Well, look at
And
I
so-
lived in the dark web for free.
Yeah.
guys
Like
like-
no internet, no communication with the outside world. Like I'm sitting there playing like Pokemon on my phone or something because like there was nothing to do. I think we ended up taking out, and so like hours go by, dude, and we can't leave the room. The room's locked. Like we can't just walk out unless he comes and checks on us and then asks if we need anything. Well, finally he comes and like brings us sandwiches, and we're like, thanks. Can we go now? And he's like, no. And this whole time we were the person that picked us up from the border and took us to the train station, they were meeting, their intentions, we were going to be staying with them that night, but they were driving from Lviv to Kyiv on the one road that's still open, and it's a much longer car ride than it is train ride, and they end up getting like stopped at checkpoints. It takes much longer than anticipated. And we had to explain all of that to the Ukrainian. What we come to find he was a Ukrainian intelligence officer. So essentially like MP or something like that. But yeah, he was literally an intelligence officer. And he's like constantly asking, he's like, when will they be back? Do you have their phone number? I wouldn't give him their phone number because like I wasn't like, I want to keep everyone out of trouble. I just kept I told him their name, and I was, but I made it very clear, like, I didn't want to dox them fully, like, oh yeah, here's their address and whatever. Well, but once again,
for sure.
but once again, I don't know when they're going to be here because I don't have internet to ask them. So finally I cave and I give him V's phone number, and I'm like, here you go. And he comes back, he's like, good news. He was like, they'll be here in 3 hours. We're like, great. Can we leave so we can meet them? And he's like, they have to come pick you up. And we were like, what? So, like, 3 hours goes by. He's at this point talking to them. And he's like, okay, so I'm gonna take you to their house, but I need their address from you. I was like, what? Ask V. You're talking to them now, and he was like, no, I need it from you. And he's like, I can't reach them right now. He's like, the last I talked to them was like an hour ago, and now I can't reach them. And we're like, okay. So finally we leave. Like at this point, it's literally been an all day thing. Like he got us at like 6 a.m. and it's now like it was like 30 minutes before curfew or something at this point. And so it was like almost 8 p.m. or something. And so finally he was like, okay, he's like, get your things, we're leaving. And so we all get back in this Tahoe, and the dude turns on his lights, and we're driving, I don't even know, it felt like probably like 65 miles an hour through the middle of downtown Kyiv. There's no cars on the road, just checkpoints. But he, like, has a hand signal and his lights, and, like, I guess they just know his vehicle well enough. And we're just blowing through these checkpoints. And he was like, we need to make one stop before we go. And we're like, okay. He's like, it's very dangerous. We're like, I mean, do we have a choice? And he's like, no. We're like, okay, so I guess we're making a stop. And he drives us across the bridge going to the other bank. That is, like, right outside of the Russian lines at this point. Like, less than 5 kilometers. and like you can hear all the shells exploding, and you can actually hear like gunfire and stuff like that at this point. And so we pull up to this like sketch back alley, like complete just weird place. And he goes, wait here. And he like locks the doors and locks us in the Tahoe and like goes inside and is talking to these, I guess, people or whatever, and comes back out like 15 minutes later. And he's like, okay, now I will take you home. And it comes to find out we actually worked with these people later on, that it was a military base that we parked at in like this little tiny back alley. Like it was like an underground, like in a basement of a building or something. So he takes us back across the bridge, going back to the other bank, and literally just like drops us off on the side of the road, and makes us unload all of our stuff. And he's like, I will wait here until they arrive. And this is at the address for our friend's house where we were staying for, come to find out, the next few days. And so he just sits there, and then as soon as they pull up, he like checks their name, checks their ID, and like the individual who we were staying with, V, their dad is a high-ranking, or was at the time a higher-ranking military official, and so he was well known, and I guess he knew their dad and V's dad. And so he was like, oh, okay, you're in good hands. And he like tells us bye and shakes our hand. And he's like, good luck. He's like,
Hold on. Pause. So you're telling me this whole time you plugged in. And I'm sitting here thinking you're about to get lively behind some back fucking alley. We're about to lose our boy to a misunderstanding. What the fuck, Jamey?
Yep. And then like all of a sudden it's all like we were not allowed to leave. Like the doors are always locked. We're literally like in a office prison cell without internet or like no idea where we are when we can leave. And then he just like drops us off at our friend's house or friend's apartment and is like, bye, good luck. And he like gives us his Ukrainian phone number. He's like, if you need anything, message me on Telegram. And we're like, okay. And then just leaves.
You're in Ukrainian ISS. Having
like,
get dropped off.
Yeah. We're literally we're at a Ukrainian black site, and all this goes down. We're like, we watched literally a Russian prisoner get interrogated, and then another Russian sympathizer allegedly, we don't know who or what was up with that. And then we just get dropped off, and he's like, have a good night, and drives off. Yep. And so we lug all of our things up to V's apartment and fall asleep, and that's it. That was that was our first 24 hours in Ukraine. Like, you were my guests, but you cannot leave. Because like the whole time he's like, thank you for coming to help, but we don't know what to do with you and who you are, so you can't leave.
Hey, let's call this portion it right here, and then save the rest for another time.
Yeah,
But
this is it. The goal for today was just getting to 24 hours. Like,
Holy
it was absurd, dude. Like, we're like questioning, like we literally watched this Russian prisoner, POW, like all bloodied up. Like, we can hear the artillery going off down the road, and he's like, "You see this laptop? This is an American's," and we're like, "What?" And then, when can we leave? You can't. and then all that, and it's just, okay, have a good night. Text me if you need anything. We're like, oh man. So, yeah, it was a great experience. Yeah, that was the first 24 hours. Us sleeping on the floor in a train station, being prisoners, and then just being told to have a good night off with our friends.
Lord Jesus.
Yep. Anyone have any further questions or comments on that? We'll very quickly do some current events real quick and then get out of here. We're at 2 hours and 40 minutes and it's almost 11, so let's be done like the next 10
Yeah,
minutes.
my wife was like, how much longer are you going to do on there? I'm like, Jamie's reminiscing on his war days. You can't rush it.
Sorry.
No, that first 24 hours is like a fucking story. That shit is amazing.
It was great. Like, it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, it was like a roller coaster of emotions for the whole 24 hours there. Like literally being woken up with a gun pointed at me, come with me, and it's like, I'm not going anywhere with you. And then yeah, so all right, any questions?
Danger.
What do y'all have? I feel bad we're running really late. I know we might start having to do these a little bit sooner.
No, we can. I say we can end it here, and we can double up on current events on the next one around.
I'm good with that.
We might.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
well,
fine.
this is our first kind of like full topic one. Like last time, it was basically just us hanging out. But yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything? Yeah, UFOs are apparently real. You know, there's that. Hold on. Is there anything else? Ukraine hit Moscow with drones yesterday. There were 3. I know 2 of them actually hit in downtown Moscow, a business district.
How do you say troll in Ukrainian?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll look that up. Let's see. The Niger coup is happening right now. With a very large support of Russia, and what's Wagner leader's name?
I don't know. Grigory something or other.
Yeah, that dude. He like last week he was saying that, you know, we're basically, I know we talked about this in current events last week, despite it not really getting recorded. He talked about, hey, Wagner, we're pulling out of Ukraine and going to Africa, and now the Niger coup is happening and is supporting Russia, and Wagner has offered their services. Hunter Biden's trial, I don't know much about that one. Yeah, it happened. Basically, they told him to do better and get off drugs.
No.
I wish most Americans could have the same opportunity.
I know, right? Yeah, the judge didn't take the plea deal. That's all I really know.
Yeah.
We can go into more detail next week.
I can run it down real quick so we don't get that mixed construed. It's
okay, you have 2 minutes.
All right. It's still going on. Judge said, fuck that plea deal. She asked the DOJ. I'm assuming it's the DOJ. I don't know who the fuck is prosecuting him. But she pretty much said, hey, are you fucking investigating on something else? I said, yes. Is there anything that can come up later on? They said, yes. She said, cool. Fuck your plea deal. And pretty much
okay. Perfect. All right.
Sense then too.
We'll touch back on give any updates on these next week. Twitter changed its name to X. Cool. And now we can X things on X.
One.
Yeah, like I don't even know. Come on, Elon. I mean, we knew you weren't good for Twitter anyway. Twitter's not good for Twitter, you know. The Springfield freaking echelon's dumb. They copied everyone else's homework. And then they had a really bad marketing scheme. And just... Wait, what?
Isn't the echelon of Croatian design?
The echelon is dumb.
The echelon's their handgun that they did not take that from Croatia. The one you're thinking of is the Hellion, which my dad actually has. Yeah, it's based off the VHS2 design.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that one. I would like to get one of us needs to get hands on with the echelon soon. And then literally as of yesterday, Frisco police pulls over family at gunpoint. And essentially, from my understanding, they got them like mixed up with someone else. It was basically almost like a Chris Dorner level screw up.
We
just mag dumped into the wrong color. Yeah, exactly. It's like, we mag dumped into this wrong color, wrong make and model vehicle because we thought it was Chris Dorner, despite we knew it was only like a mom and her daughter or something. Yeah. The police believed it was stolen. And then it was a high-risk traffic stop, so they basically drugged the family out at gunpoint. So, yeah. We can catch up on more of those next week, and give any updates in more detail if we need to. So, yeah.
More cops cheating at Simon Says.
Oh, yeah, more. Daniel Schaefer, a freaking legend. All right. Anybody got anything else? We'll close out of this.
No.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much good to go. I'm gonna go make some more fried rice.
Sorry for the 2 hour and 45-minute stream, everyone. I think we were originally, when we talked about doing the podcast, talked about keeping it like 2 hours. So yeah.
We'll do
next
better next time.
Yeah, this is a good gauge on just how big of a topic. Like, I basically covered. We covered a lot in this episode. So next week we'll talk about probably my first week in Ukraine, which will not be nearly as dense. It was a lot of sitting around exploring the city. It'll be a pretty lax episode, but it'll be a lot of fun. There's some stories there too about just something as simple as trying to find eggs. So yeah, come back next week for basically our first week, and any current events, of course. We'll talk more about those next week. Other than that, who has a takeaway for today? Do we have a takeaway? I forgot to make one.
Don't sweat the petty things. Don't pet the sweaty things.
What?
Say that again.
Don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things.
All right.
Okay. I got one.
I'm here for it.
I got one for you. Don't hoard guns and bullets. Actually go train, or otherwise you'll be an amazing loot drop for some of these hot boys out here that actually train.
It's true. It's true. And don't forget, sometimes it is applicable and acceptable to get into cars with strangers, especially if it's a blacked out Tahoe in Ukraine. So, all right, everyone. Thanks.
Mine would be don't get black bagged in a country where you don't speak the language, but I guess get into cars with strangers too.
One might.
I mean, hey, it technically worked out, but I don't know if I would like recommend doing it. I mean, it did work out.
I got another one for you. Don't go to a foreign country in the middle of a conflict. Take your fucking iMac and think it's a great idea to drop the location of where you're at just to get you to see what it's like.
Dude, I wish I had that guy's name. Like, I really wish I had his name and like I could look him up, because that dude's probably black boxed in some prison somewhere. Like, whether it's the U.S. or a Ukrainian prison, dude. That guy is dropped off the face of the planet. His family has no idea what happened. I can guarantee it.
He's hanging by his fucking nuts in a prison cell in Donetsk somewhere.
Man, that's a different level of stupid right there.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone. Tune in next week. Be sure to, do the whole YouTube like, comment, subscribe thing. So you can always get notified. Ian's Oper808r Supply will be down in the description. A link to that. Check him out on Instagram. I know GunsGothsandAnarchy. Was that Lieutenant Dangler's? Yeah, that's his.
That's our guy.
OhanaArms.com. You can watch all of the current episodes, as well as we got some merch drops coming soon. Very soon. So check that out, and hopefully the Devil Drives Lada logo will be done soon also. That's we're super excited about that. It's gonna have a Lada in it. I know that's crazy to believe, but it's gonna be sick.
Whoa.
So check that out. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube so you get notified when we're going live, and we'll see you guys next week.
And our sponsor today is DoorDash for bringing Jamey hibachi that Zach couldn't make.
It's true. Yeah, and Sonoran Dessert Institutionalization. Bye, guys.